For the upcoming right-hander, brake 30 meters later and ease off the pressure.
Hello, good evening and welcome ladies and gentlemen to another round of rapid fire racing action in the SimRacing International GT3 Championship, as brought to you on the premier sim racing platform available only on PC, known as iRacing, and proudly powered by Trophy.ai. Season 10 continues, and today it is round 2 of 10 as we've made our way all the way to the Dutch circuit known as Circuit Zandvoort. Located along the Dutch coastline, it's not going to be an opportunity for our drivers to lay on the beach today, as they're only going to be a couple of miles away from the beach, but with it all, a very tricky circuit to master. 14 corners over its 2.64 mile length, and plenty of corners around here where it's one wide at the most, but there are plenty of opportunities as well to go two wide at some, and it means around here it's all about finding the flow, being smooth as possible, and if you are able to be smooth, you can be successful at Circuit Zandvoort. With all the camber added to the corners as its renovations in preparation for the Dutch Formula 1 Grand Prix as of 2021, our drivers will know here that the aim of the game will be speed. Carry as many miles now from quarter to quarter and apex to apex, and you can come out on top and add that together with a smooth drive, and it could be the recipe for the ultimate victory. But where are my manners? Allow me to welcome you all to this live broadcast from Circuit Side as you're tuning in today as the campaign of Split B carries on across our Pro and Evo classes, and you're tuning of course in the one and only place where you can catch all SimRacing International broadcasts, and that's on YouTube at youtube.com, and search for SimRacing International or SRI, and you can be tuning in there. In the content booth you have myself, my name is Paul Walsh, also known as TX1 or Britain Split, depending on what media you follow me on, and I will bring you all your racing action over the entirety of the season from Split B as our drivers look to go battle-willing all the way for victory and either right to be crowned champion come the end of season 10 in this wonderful anniversary sunset season. But don't be shy, feel free to say hi in the YouTube chat, and do remember as well we have the simultaneous broadcast ongoing from Split A as well, where you have the elite and premier classes there, and that's being covered live from circuit side as well by the very talented combination of Joe Glass and Dara Vaca. Indeed, plenty of racing action to tune into as we've got the best part of 120 drivers doing competition over our two splits, and here of course today we are focusing on the best part of 50 drivers as they make the way around Circuit Zandvoort in Split B. But as we head then into this round, well, let's recap the story after our opening round, I should say, and indeed there is plenty of change afoot as we head into round number 2, and let's find out what all the changes are. Well, as we can see, making our way to our calendar then, we have now made our way all the way from the Hungaroring Grand Prix circuit. That was our host venue on the 25th of September, and what a venue it was. Whilst not known for overtakes, arguably the Monaco without the walls, we got to see some absolutely brilliant qualifying laps there, and none other than a phenomenal pole lap for overall pole position, that in pro by Vincent Lodder, who managed to outpace his teammate Menno Bloem for SimRacing Team Lowlands by the slenderest of margins. However, in the race, it was a complete reversal of fortunes. Menno Bloem decided to go absolutely all into turn number 1. He knew where to brake compared to his teammate, who wasn't quite as rehearsed with the run down towards turn 1. And it was Menno Bloem and Vincent Lodder went side by side for the opening couple of quarters, and Bloem was able to take lead and gradually run away with it. Meanwhile, his teammate Vincent Lodder had to struggle his way back up through the field, having been elbowed out slightly, and in the end had to finish in third. Between the two of them, it was Codman who split the fare for Axis Simsports Red, and indeed it was very close between Codman and Lodder in the closest stages, but Codman really was second best to Bloem. And will that continue today? Alternatively, could we see a new name or a new set of names on top, if not the podium? Well, that's going to be the thought process for the Hungaroring into Circuit Zandvoort for what is our pro drivers. As for the Evo class, however, we've got plenty of changes there as well, because there was one name that absolutely dominated in round number 1, and that was Simon Clifton. However, his dominance has earned him the reward of being promoted immediately to the pro class, and therefore that leaves a power vacuum after only one round of racing, and argue the big name that's going to jump into that spot will be a second place finisher Steve Rubino, who has come to be ahead of the fight for third in the end, and that was between Dave Collier and also Denny Ploger and Andy Chell. Keep in mind, of course, Andy Chell had a lot of pace for third, but unfortunately a bit of a moment with another driver cost him very dearly, as we do say hello to Denny Ploger there in the YouTube chat. But that's the recap of how we've come to Circuit Zandvoort. And it is, of course, the 2nd of October today, and another sunny day. After today, we're making our way to Portimao's Grand Prix circuit in Portugal for round number 3, and we've got plenty of venues upcoming, but let's not dwell too much on them, because we want to focus on the here and now, and indeed in the present. Now, we're not going to be able to walk you through the championship standings. They're still being reorganised, and they will be available most likely after this round, so going into round number 3, and with some class changes afoot, also some team updates afoot. Therefore, we don't want to jump into the standings too soon. As always, we may paint an inaccurate picture, but just to remind you, we have had that one significant class change, and it is Simon Clifton, the Evo winner from round number 1, has moved to pro, and we look forward to seeing what Clifton could do in the pro class, given he finished inside the top 10 overall in round number 1. But heading into this round at Circuit Zandvoort, let's talk a little bit about our host circuit. It's located near the city of Zandvoort in the North Holland region of the Netherlands. 2.64 miles in length, or 4.25 kilometres depending on your preference of unit. The Grand Prix circuit plays host here. There's plenty of layouts, but this is the full Grand Prix layout, and indeed it makes its way all the way off into distance, on one side going all the way to the east and coming back to the western side. And indeed, just a little bit further west from the start-finish line is where the Dutch coast sits. But as I drive all the way around its 14 corners, it is a circuit where it's all about technical RS, but also knowing that with the camber in the corners, at certain points, including Tarzan Bocht at turn number 1, you can in fact go around the outside just as easily as you can on the inside when trying to make moves, and knowing which corners you can do that at versus the ones not to also plays a big part of the circuit knowledge and how you can come away on top. But as I drivers roar the way down the start-finish straight, we're not going to be trying to repeat all the names of the corners when we do go racing, folks, but I'm going to give it a try here as we take you around for the lap. It'll be our drivers who make the way into Tarzan Bocht there. On the outside of the inside, they'll look to try and carry all the momentum through the opening corner. Then it'll be a quick run into a Galop Bocht at turn number 2, the quick left into right combination there at turn number 2, before they eject themselves into Hungaroring spot. That in reference to John Hugenholz, the circuit designer of older years, and as they make their way through turn number 3, they'll find it's no longer a flat corner, but indeed a very heavily cambered corner for Formula 1 racing, and then it's all about staying high on the outside. Then we'll see our drivers roar the way flat out through Hungaroring at turn number 4, then into Slotmaker Bocht at turn number 5, and then uphill into turn number 6 for roaring their way through the downhill off-camera right-hander at turn number 7 at Shavak, and as they make the way out, it will then be into the quick king of Masters Bocht at turn number 8, before they come into the switchback hairpin sequence at turns 9 and 10, one of them being known as Bocht 9, or turn number 9, as it translates in Dutch, and the other one being the CM.com Bocht at turn number 10, in reference to the title sponsor of the circuit, CM.com. But as they exit out of those two corners, where it's all about the battle of the late apex, but plenty of opportunity to lunge up the inside, it'll then be a short run all the way out towards the Hans-Ernst chicane at turns 11 and 12, a sharp right-hand right angle corner, which drops down into a much more sweeping left-hander, a very tight exit, and as they make their way out, it's a quick sprint to Bocht 13, after which it'll be flat out all the way through Bocht as they roar the way on towards the start-finish line to do it all over again. And turn number 14 there being incredibly cambered now. Indeed, our drivers will be going flat out, whereas previously, prior to 2021, it would be a lift going through the apex there unless they were on low fuel. Well, hopefully I haven't butchered too many of the corner names there, but that's the track we're going racing at today, and without further ado, folks, let's make our way back to circuit side and see how they're all getting on in the qualifying session. So as we head back to the circuit then, and our drivers make it around, we've got plenty of time left in qualifying, given the fact it is an hour-long session, and therefore our drivers do have the opportunity to deliver plenty of laps. However, with 20 minutes left on the clock, it's looking as though at the moment, at least, the man who took victory in round number 1, Menno Bloem, is looking to be the quickest out there. Steve Rubino, meanwhile, theoretically, the inheriting winner of the Evo class with the promotion of Simon Clifton from the Evo to the Pro class after round number 1. The points will be adjusted, albeit Clifton will stand in the record books as the Evo winner for that round, but we have to refer to what is Steve Rubino as the inheritant winner for the championship standings consideration. Well, right now he's a long way down there in 27th place overall, or what translates into 3rd place in the Evo class. And for our fastest Evo driver, well, it's none other than Jan Nagy as he makes his way in towards turn number 3. And you can see there the amount of camber in the corners. He makes his way around that lovely camera shot there, which pans around on the inside of the apex and gives you a look down onto the car when that McLaren 720S, right now he is looking formidably quick, and he's the fastest Evo driver there in 17th place overall, ahead of Denny Ploger by the best part of 7 places, or what translates into just shy of 2 tenths worth of time. As we say hello to JB in the YouTube chat there as well, who says DWR for the win. Now, speaking of Darkwing Racing, we do have Darkwing Racing Purple out there, of course, and well, Darkwing Racing Purple being a slightly revised team name for none other than Jovan Hurag, as we do look to find him out of the circuit at the moment. But where is he? I think he's a little bit shy of our cameras at the moment. Here's Hurag, but we'll find him when we can, because he is out there trying to give it his all. As these drivers continue the round around, it does look as though right now there are plenty of surprises here, but we wouldn't be surprised because the Hungaroring versus Circuit Zandvoort, 2 very different styles of circuit. Now on paper you may be thinking, well, surely they're quite similar. Narrow tracks, difficult to overtake at, and plenty of corners. Yes, however, the Hungaroring lacks a lot of camber in its corners, apart from, say, turn number 2 and also turn number 4. Here at Circuit Zandvoort, most corners run with some degree of off-camber or on-camber in their nature. For example, here at Masters Box at turn number 8, as Klaus Verlaine gives you a demonstration of how he makes his way on through that in the Porsche 992. So it does mean around here you've got a much more technical circuit below the surface, and therefore it's all about exploiting that pace that's going to really make the difference and being able to get the throttle down just a little bit more comfortably and abusing the camber. That is going to be the difference between being on pole and being in 10th place, and that's why right now Menno Bloem is the fastest out there. But what we are seeing is that resumption of Ferraris and Fords at the very top, with Stephen Codman splitting Lodder and Bloem at this time, and then he missed round number 1, but on the grid today for round number 2 it's none other than Robin Noel Brown as he heads his way on around the circuit. Right now he seems to be in a very happy place with the car, it must be said, for Mr. Noel Brown, as he gets ready to make his way down towards turns 10 and 11. And we do apologise there if the overlay refreshed itself, just a slight error being corrected in the background. And Robin Noel Brown right now for the GPX Simsport team, well, he's definitely represented them absolutely high. We then have Peter Duke, the DC Motorsports driver, who we had the opportunity to catch up with as of round number 1, and indeed looked very good out there at the Hungaroring. Things didn't quite click together the way he wanted them to in some respects, but to be fair, very resilient drive. And the 177 driver right now, well, here we hoping that he can make his way back into the top 5 again today and stay there, if not hunt down a podium, given the pace he's brought to the table, and we look forward to seeing whether he's able to make that a reality. The man who's made his way to pro then, Simon Clifton here, you can see him in the Ford Mustang once again. Great to see him out there. And currently in 15th place, but still getting himself a bit familiar with the fact he's running the Pro class right now and not the Evo class. And well, Jan Nagy, the current Evo pole sitter, the best part of what is 1/10 behind it, just over a tenth. So Clifton right now will feel as though he has stepped clear of his Evo peers, but now he's got to try and step up and creep his way back into the top 10 versus his Pro peers. Now, what's he going to be able to do this time? We will wait and see as he roars his way around there in number 5 machine. And, well, Andy Chell, meanwhile, in the 33, he heads on through in his customary number 5, not in the car today. Well, as he heads towards the time, along the Quatermass Motorsport driver here, the one who was quite gutted with the way the Hungaroring red. He did have that altercation with James Howarth midway through the race, if my memory serves me correctly. And well, the Aston Martin Evo driver, in the end, missing out on a 3rd place finish. But today, at least, it looks as though right now he's chasing down that 3rd place in qualifying. He's not too far from Bino's time there, only a 10.5 between the two of them, and that is a very slender margin, and indeed 2 very different cars in terms of how they get their lap time. With Chell's Aston Martin, whilst it is a bit of a straight line beast, it does require you to keep the RPM very high. Meanwhile, with the Ford Mustang, you've got a lot of straight line speed and acceleration, but you lack braking potential compared to the Aston Martin. The Aston Martin, a bit more a nimble car off the brakes versus the Ford Mustang, but the Ford Mustang does offer a lot of stability and therefore can ride the curbs much more aggressively as Shell understeers there coming through Masters box. We do have one of our Porsches going wayward and taking to the escape road there. Couldn't quite see who it was, albeit they're being very respectful of the fact they've got other cars coming through and not trying to return to the circuit without using the escape road. That's good awareness. Adam Smith comes across line, and as we see him heading on through, what can he do this time? And it is going to be an improvement to a 32.981, but not enough to move him any higher from 26th place at the moment, just ahead of Dean Sheesby. So it does seem as though Smith's struggling a little bit as he rolls his way around, but we'll see what he can do next time out. He gets to make his way into the middle portion of the lap. We do have a black flag for James Howarth. That will be for what would be most likely speeding in the pit lane, and therefore Howarth will have to come back into the pit lane and serve what will be a drive-through penalty. So that's going to cost him the best part of 2 laps worth of qualifying, or what equates into approximately, if we do some quick mental mathematics, about 4.5 minutes worth of his time. So take the time right now and deduct these 4 minutes off, and well, you'll see that James Howarth only has 11 minutes left on the clock at this point. Not ideal when you are in 10th place and you want to make your way forward. The same there, a yellow flag for none other than Tim van den Ham, and well, I believe he's had a bit of a run wide or a bit of a corner cut at turn number 13, and that's what's triggered the slowdown penalty there, which he will have to serve. If he doesn't serve it in an allotted period of time, it will be upgraded to a drive-through penalty. He served it on the start-finish straight there, falls away a little bit from the car in front of him, that being the BMW M4 Evo, one of the ones from SimRacing Team UK, and right now van den Ham realising he's going to get a little bit closer if he wants to pick up that slipstream. One thing that's definitely noticeable on home soil today, Simracing Team Lowlands are looking very quick. Right now, with Bloem on provisional pole, Lodder in provisional 3rd place, and then van den Ham in 6th. Well, they do have 3 of their drivers, of which they do have 6 drivers in Split B, if my memory serves me correctly. Well, half of their drivers are all the way at the top here, all of them pro drivers to be fair. It does, but well, invariably, Simracing Team Lowlands are predominantly pro drivers, the ones who are in this split, so therefore very populous and will be very keen to make a good impression at the home circuit. Indeed, there's always something special about your home circuit, as Nigel Mansell would say in his Formula 1 years, the good old Red 5, and many of you may remember the infamous scenes when he did take the victory at the Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit one year, and also subsequently, perhaps more notably, took victory versus Nelson Piquet at Silverstone with the infamous dummy, and the fact he couldn't get the car to the pit lane in the end because Mansell Mania took over as the crowd breached the grandstands and broke onto the circuit on his cool-down lap. But right now, not breaking out the grandstands, but instead breaking his way to turn number 7. Here's Robin Pownier for Sim Coach, and for the Corvette Z06 GT3R driver, not looking too strong at the moment, it must be said, down in 24th place. He is 9/10 off of the overall pole time, but again, don't rule him out, because we know that Pownier is one of those drivers, the longer he is left in a league, he gradually builds up the pace. We saw that in Season 9, in the fact he went on to become one of the top 3 challengers in the Premier class, and that's why he's been promoted to Pro. And right now, he's just gradually finding his feet. A very different circuit for the Corvette, and one where he'll be able to use its all-round nature, its rather unassuming nature, to his advantage, as he will just be able to get his head down and carry on. And speaking of Corvette drivers doing well as well, Liam Fraser here for Moonshiners Racing Club. Well, he's currently in 11th place, only the best part of half a second or so off the overall pole time, and a bit of a frustrating Hungaroring race for the Fraser family, both for James and Liam, and they'll be looking for a much happier day today, as Liam, of course, one of the 2 brothers in the Pro class. Meanwhile, for James Fraser, he is in the Evo class, as you can see him here in the Moonshiners Racing Club Porsche 992 GT3 with the door number 22, and he's currently the 5th fastest in the Evo class, and well, not too far ahead of Stuart Rice or Rob Gregg, and therefore a little bit of pressure building from behind. But as he makes his way towards the end of this lap, we'll see what he's able to do. He is on a personal best in Sector 1. His Sector 3, meanwhile, he's still got to find a bit of time out there. Sector 2 has not been an improvement, but what can he do here as he comes towards line? Previous best of 33.55. As Fraser crosses the timeline, he jumps onto a 33.276. A good improvement there by the best part of 2.5 tenths, and it puts him into 4th place in Evo, 30th overall. Great work there from a number 22 driver, and that splits him right between Steve Rubino and Andy Chell. Just in front of Andy Chell by 200ths there, in fact. So Chell will now look at the time screens and realise he's now got to try and fight his way forward a little bit more in qualifying. But as he heads on to another lap, we do come to other drivers who's coming towards the end of their current lap. And in fact, it's Liam Fraser who's going to take us around for a flying lap of Circuit Zandvoort's Grand Prix circuit. 10 in towards turn number 1 here and onto the brakes as late as possible. Trail brake into the apex and immediately getting the throttle back on as he feels the nose bited. Now heading in towards turn number 2 here. Left into right, dab the brake, pitch the nose forward as he drops down to 3rd gear. And now in towards turn number 3, bring it over to the right. Get on the brakes initially, drop to 2nd gear, and now floor it out the corner. Believe that the preload's going to load up, and we're at the right inside tyres. And as he flat outs his way all the way in towards turn number 7, here it's all about track positioning. Number 5 and in towards 6. Now let the car roll out to the side and immediately onto the brakes there at the marshal's post. Drop down to 4th gear, wait for it, let the throttle build, and now full throttle out the corner as he heads in towards master's box at turn number 8. Here it's a dab of the brake, pitch the weight forward and then through the corner, making sure not to take too much curb. And now heading in towards turn number 9. Late as possible on the brakes, down to the 2nd gear. Takes the apex curve to rotate the car, but it does cause a bit of oversteer there. He'll have to try and iron that out next time. And now heading towards turn number 10. Flatter curb there, he can be a bit more aggressive with it, but comes out the corner. Somebody there looking to rejoin. That's Matt Stace, who's taking a trip to the gravel. He'll rejoin very shortly. There's a bit of a nightmare moment as Fraser now makes his way down towards turns 11 and 12 onto the brakes here. A very sharp right-hand at turn number 11, but you see how much it opens up turn number 12, and in fact getting caught out there by the fact he actually went a bit too deep coming out of 11 into 12, and I think used to the fact that chicane used to be even tighter than that, and it was widened for the purposes of Formula 1 racing. But as he comes out of 13 in towards 14, Fraser right now flat out all the way through the final quarter, and as he heads towards the timeline, I don't think this has been a lap he's been too proud of, and I think he's going to have to go again there. A decent lap at least, but not a lap where he's able to improve from his current 12th place on this provisional qualifying order. We do show you the class positions there on screen as well to give you an idea of how all of our class drivers are looking time-wise with respect to each other. But we do remind you, of course, the fact that with qualifying, it is a grid that is set based on overall qualifying time, not class qualifying time. So if we do see an Evo driver out-qualify a Pro driver, they will start ahead of them, and that's where we get the intermingling. But the natural idea is that over the course of the race distance, you will see the Pros fight the Pros, and the Evos fight the Evos, and the occasional scrap in between. Well, we might have a bit of a disagreement between two drivers there as to who is the one who wants to be ahead of the other in the aspiration of chasing down their class peers. As there, Liam Fraser taking too little speed through turn number 7, and therefore taking a bit too much apex curb and with some of the grass. However, he'll take that as a souvenir to the pit lane, I'm sure. And as he comes in towards turn number 9, he's finding a bit of traffic in front of him right now. He may need to back off here because it is getting a little bit claustrophobic heading in towards turn number 10. But as we look from him and look back to your fastest man right now, Menno Bloem, where he comes across the timeline, and with him there, that is Jared Love giving him company. And Love is a long way down in 19th place of the pros. Where does that translate into in terms of the overall time? Well, he is 7/10 off of Bloem's time, as Menno Bloem lets him go there. And well, for Jared Love, he is all the way down in 19th. In fact, we have a top 19 absolutely filled with pro drivers, and Tom Cordy being one of many of them. Many a driver, in fact, having an off somewhere on circuit. I think they're all taking a bit of a rallycross approach here. And well, when you do have the best part of 48 drivers all out on circuit here right now, it is getting very tight in this qualifying session to find space and therefore room to be able to get the best possible time in. But to be fair, that's going to be one of the arts of the craft, and we are trying it, of course, for season 10, the open qualifying 1 hour session. Already a good amount of feedback is coming from drivers up and down the field, some loving it, some hating it, and some finding a ground in between, but all that feedback is appreciated. And of course at SimRacing International, we always choose to do a little bit of experimentation from season to season, because the natural thing is we always want to improve. We always want to try and move a series forward and find a way to make it even better than from what it already is. It's already fantastic, to be fair, and that's not us being a modest here, I'm sure you'll agree. But as we do see Denny Ploger making his way on around, we always like to see a little bit more, and Ploger was the first man into the YouTube chat to say hello earlier, and right now, as Denny makes his way across that timeline, he doesn't improve. He stays 26 overall, and that translates into 2nd place in Evo currently. As we say hello to Mike Barber, or Mike Bar 2011 there, teammate of Quatermass Motorsport driver Andy Chell. Well, right now Andy Chell, the only representative from Quatermass for this season, and more Andy receiving a lot of tutelage from his teammates, none more so than the professional of Mike Barber, who's given him a good amount of advice and helping him from the pit wall. And well, Andy was talking about the fact that last time out at the Hungaroring, when it all went wrong, it was because of the fact that he did have his his teammate on the wall, giving him advice and instructing him not to lose his cool. That's the reason he was able to recover so well over the race distance, as we do see a few drives running wide there, including Dave Collier, who's had a bit of a nightmare moment. He's been able to bring it back together, I believe. But Dave Collier, the man who finished second place last time out of our Evo drivers, well, right now this is definitely proving to be a much more awkward round for him, in the fact that he's down in 43rd at the moment, or his 13th place. The Evo drivers, as that was a car going around there, that I believe was a BMW M4, not quite sure who it was. It's Robert McNaughton. There he is, and with car parked up, he's going to get that turned as quickly as he can. That's in a bit of an awkward place. He will be able to get it rotated, but it is going to take a lot of time, because the problem is he's waiting for the whole circuit to clear. Now, after the next 3 cars, he will have an opportunity to go races. We see a bit of a swap out of 2 cars there. Finally gets it turned around, misses the barrier, and well, for Robert Norton, a spin, a very easy one to make. But now, of course, he's lost a lot of tyre temperature. He's got dirt on the tyres as well. That is going to take some time for him to get the car back up to speed. He's currently our final placed qualifier. All 48 drivers have set valid times, and Norton being at the very back of the pack, just behind David Pilcher. But to be fair, Norton and Pilcher, they may be a bit further off the pace, but that doesn't exclude them from having fun as much as everybody else. And normally those drivers who start from the back of the field in the early stage of the season, you can always expect them to go a little bit faster as the season goes on. And for them, and for example, David Pilcher, he may set himself a target, not necessarily for this round, but later on in the season, which is he just wants to claim a couple of top 10s in the Evo class, and to him, that will be the equivalent of a win. Whereas for the likes, for example, of Stuart Rice, well, his aspirations, we do know, are to push a lot higher this season after that frustrating Season 9 in the Premier class, wherein he spent just as much time fighting Evo drivers as he did Premier drivers when those 2 classes were on the same circuit together. Remember, of course, for Season 10, we have swapped the Pro and Premier classes around in the split. So split A is Elite and Premier, and meanwhile split B is Pro and Evo, in order to provide a bit more of a pace difference between the different splits of drivers, and therefore encourage them to battle the individual classes more rather than across classes. Well, right now Stuart Rice definitely targeting some bigger results here this season compared to how Season 9 went, and in 6th place currently of our Evo drivers, or 35th. He's definitely looking upwards, not downwards in that Aston Martin. And the new kid on the block, the Aston Martin Evo Vantage, which arrived in racing as of 2023. Definitely proving to be a bit of a popular car with twin-turbo powered V8 power plant from Mercedes. And once he roars his way in towards turn 1 this time, doesn't improve, but he's got a couple more opportunities to do so. Speed of opportunities to improve, well, Menno Bloem, meanwhile, heads towards the line. And as he goes up nice and high, we get an onboard there with Menno Bloem as he takes us around for a lap to try and beat his provisional pole time. So down he comes in the Ferrari 296 to the braking zone, and braking there 100 metres from quarter apex all the way down to the second gear. Plenty of apex curb, and now bangs the throttle back down to the floor. And as he does so, oh my goodness, a big snap there as he tries to get the power down. In towards turn number 2 he goes. This is going to be a very aggressive lap over to the right hand side, and braking nice and late, pointing the car uphill to then let the car roll round to the left of turn number 3. And then it's going to be flat out here through 4, 5 and 6, where he gets towards turn number 7. And you'll see here minimal steering input, as little as he can possibly do in order to make sure he doesn't shave off too much speed as he comes in towards turn number 7, and braking there literally past the marshal's post, which is the beginner's braking marker, it would seem. And we're coming now in towards turn number 8, or through master's spot very quickly. He runs it all the way out, just keeps it on the exit curb there, and brakes immediately into turn number 9, but carried so much momentum he went a bit deep, did Bloem, and that's going to cost him a bit of time here as he now comes into turn number 10. He's really attacking this lap. His sector 1 is down on his previous best, comes out of turn number 10. What about his sector 2? We're about to find out as he makes his way underneath the gantry board here, and the answer is going to be for his sector 2. It is not an improvement as he heads onto the brakes here for turn number 11, so he's going to need a magical final sector if he wants to improve upon his previous best of that 32.010. But out of the chicane there doesn't take as wide an exit line perhaps, and I think Bloem here slightly back it off and set himself up for 2 more tries if he's got the fuel and the tyre life to do so. But this has definitely not been a lap he's enjoyed, and you see he's staying nice and high there in order to make sure he carries all the speed onto the next lap. A bit of a frustrating one as Bloem comes towards the timeline and does not find a way to improve. Some small mistakes there, but driving on the limit. That was a 33.022, a whole second slower compared to his previous best, and that was for the mistake we saw coming through turn number 9 and in towards 10. But as he heads on towards his next lap, well, is anybody else able to improve out there? We have Vincent Lodder. He has moved back into second place with a 32.06, so he's only 500ths off of the overall pole man, but it's looking as though it's going to be a Simracing Team Lowlands 1-2 at this time. Codman, meanwhile, in the pit lane is only 5 thousandths slower by comparison, and it's going to be a Ford second row of the grid at the moment if it stays as it is, because Robin Noel Brown would join in there, the best part 1.5 tenths behind. So our top three separated by less than 600ths, and then it's a sizable gap to fourth. Meanwhile, in the Evo class, it is looking to be the story of Jan Nagy, who is looking very quick at the moment in the 23. He's out the car already, and well, in 23rd place, the number 65 driver there, as I adjust my eyes. Well, he's definitely looking good in his McLaren, with Denny Ploger a couple of places behind, and then it's the question of who will be third in that qualifying between Steve Rubino, James Fraser and Andy Chell. Well, Chell and Rubino are both out the cars. Fraser is still out there, and he will have this lap plus the final lap, because do keep in mind overtime rules are in effect, whereby when the clock strikes 60 minutes complete, our drivers, if they are on a lap, are permitted to finish it. But speaking of finishing a good lap, well, we've just had Stuart Rice improving in his 6th place endeavour in the Evo class. As he gets it rolled there, coming out turn number 1, a bit too eager. Oh, goodness me, and that is going to scupper some other drivers there, as we see an immediate lift off there from our driver who parks up in the McLaren. So both drivers in the end, well, they both have to retire to the pit lane. Here comes Rob Gregg towards the timing line with the best part of 50 seconds left on the clock. He's going to come down into the pit lane. He's not happy, and I don't think he feels as though he can improve anymore. Meanwhile, also into the pits there. That's a very quick race. Oh, that's a nasty knock on the back, and I believe that may have been the Mercedes there. I'm trying to say, I think it was the Vulcan Fasters machine, unless I'm mistaken, at Nick Stubb. Well, if so, both of them in a bit of contact there, and not the way I wanted to go. That was Nick Stubb making that contact, and I think not expecting that Aston Martin to begin as slow to the pit limiter line. But Christopher Starsmore makes his way around here. He's on his final lap. He won't squeeze in another one for Simcast Racing Team UK. He's currently in 12th place, and making his way in towards the right into left here. Well, this BMW M4 Evo may feel a little bit out of place here at Circuit Zandvoort. A very quick car on the straights, but also a car now that's rather sharp when it comes to low-speed corners and quick-fire direction changes. It's not the car it once was. He comes out of turn 13, runs wide. That will invalidate the lap. And well, Christopher Starsman will be starting 12th at best here. James Howarth, meanwhile, he's trying to make his way ahead. Howarth heading down the start-finish straight. Picked up a toe there off the back of David Pilcher. Is it enough? No, it's not. Howarth will stay in 13th place. Further down, the man who finished on the podium of the Evo class at the Hungaroring, Dave Collier. Well, right now, this is not going too well for him at all. And in fact, a long way back here, and well, he was the runner-up compared to Steve Rubino, who was the winner. I do apologise if I said earlier that Collier was the winner. In fact, he was a podium finisher in the Evo class at the Hungaroring, and as he heads towards the time line, well, remember, at the Hungaroring, he qualified 8th in class, but then finished in 3rd. He had a difficult qualifying session, and this time, he's going to qualify 14th in class. Well, if he's going to make it another podium, he's going to need to go some under the race distance. But to be fair, if anybody can, Collier can. That's a certainty as he makes his way to a parking standstill. Is anybody else on a lap? Liam Fraser heads into the pit lane. That's his lap done. Tim van den Ham, meanwhile, heads towards the time line. Can he improve from 7th place? And the answer is going to be no, he can't. Tim van der Ham stays in 7th. And, well, Simracing Team Lowlands will put 3 cars inside the top 10, but only 2 of them will occupy the front row. And it will be Menno Bloem and Vincent Lodder who line up on that front row, with Bloem taking his first pole position of the season ahead of the Hungaroring pole sitter of Lodder. And from our pro and overall pole sitters, it will then be starting in 23rd place, Jan Nagy, who has taken the Evo pole position there. A brilliant lap from Nagy, the best part of what is 2 tenths clear of the second fastest Evo driver of Denny Ploger, who will start 26th. The qualifying comes to a close, and as James Fraser calls it on down, and he's the only driver out there at the moment, albeit he's not on a valid lap, he is on a cool-down lap. We're not too far away from going green flag racing for the second round of the season, ladies and gentlemen. And when we do, you can be assured it is going to be a thriller, and one not to be missed here at Circuit Zandvoort's Grand Prix Circuit. So as we now get set for going racing, of course, we do have the 5-minute warm-up session here where our drivers have an opportunity to take a bit of a comfort break, as do we all. And this is a prime time, folks. If you have not had the opportunity to go to that all-important bathroom break before we do go green flag racing, alternatively, get yourself some popcorn or a choice of food, some entertainment food, definitely indeed, would go very well. Plus also a hot or cold beverage, depending on how you're feeling. Although here in the United Kingdom, I definitely recommend a warm beverage, given the fact it is heading towards winter very gradually. We are already into October. Goodness me, 2025 has flown by as quickly as pie. And right now, Vincent Lodder making his way out the pit lane here. He's trying to keep nice and hot. I do believe, in fact, currently in the Netherlands, it's quite cold, albeit circuit-wise today. What are our weather conditions looking like? Well, as Lodder makes his way around, there are the conditions in the top right of your screen. And what we can see right now in terms of the track temperature, 21 degrees centigrade. Meanwhile, ambient temperature, 19 degrees centigrade. So it's not too bad when it comes to ambient and track temperature. It's a relatively cool circuit, but one that is absorbing a bit of heat. And with the fact we haven't got too much cloud here today, got quite a bit of sunshine, but we are heading towards sunset, of course. It is the Sunset Series, and we are maintaining that theme with regards to the weather conditions and the time of day of going racing, where the racing should finish just as the sun has completely set and we start to head into effective nightfall. Well, right now for Vincent Lodder, he'll be feeling as though this is going to be an opportunity to try and strike back versus his teammate Menno Bloem at his home circuit, and that he's got a good gauge for how warm the circuit is and what that means with regards to tyre temperatures in the early stages of racing. And of course, keep an eye on the GT3 tyre model. Well, it's a very different model compared to what it used to be. It did evolve going into Season 9, whereby we did see the change of the tyre model to be a tyre that cannot be pushed and abused straight away. Instead, now you have to be much more conservative with the compound, where you do have to bring it up to temperature gradually like you would in real-life motorsport, as seen with the GT3s in IMSA. And of course, these GT3 machines all replicating machines that are currently or have previously raced in the IMSA series in the United States of America, which draws a whole international array of racing drivers. But Stephen Codman makes his way around there in the Axis Simsports Red machine with his teammate right behind him. And well, that being his teammate of none other, the Mark Johnson, the two Axis Simsports Red 4 Mustangs together. Lovely to see them in formation there. Well, I believe Johnson doing a bit of weaving side to side. I think he knows he's on camera. I think they both know they're on camera here, and this is a perfect photo opportunity for the team. And, well, great to see them out there enjoying themselves and getting themselves thoroughly set. We do look to the YouTube chat. We do say hello there to Taito Nation, who is none other than James Howarth. And I hope you're doing well, James. And a decent qualifying session for yourself, to be fair. Albeit, we look forward to seeing how you can move forward over the race distance, given the fact I suspect you'll be quite eager to make some progress and try and perhaps get into the top 5 come the end of today. And we do wish you the best of luck in chasing that aspiration. But as we do see Stuart Rice saying, this is going to be one great race, or a hell of a race, as he says in particular, as I reread the words. And indeed, a very interesting one, because when we start this race, it's all going to be about making those early positions where you can. Come the end of, say, the first 20 minutes, then starts to become the question of worrying about strategy and worrying about traffic later in the race if you do come up to some drivers who are further down the order, particularly the lower-paced Evo drivers, as our pros come up towards them, and anybody who's had a bit of a nightmare race, or nightmare moments like this, for example, where Jakub Krafik has caught up to the back of a driver who's just rejoining. I believe that's Ross Young in front of him, the S racing driver there having a bit of an excursion and finally recovering from it. As he makes his way in towards turn number 7. Well, right now, we're very looking forward to the 101 driver in the very colourful Porsche of Krafik, trying to do what he can, and we're making some early progress. But a minute left on the clock, and well, as we also say hello there to Jordan Maymar, who cheers on Simcast Racing Team UK. And of course, we did have the pleasure of seeing an absolutely monstrous effort in Season 9 in the Evo class from Jordan Maymar. He really was one of the stars of Season 9. Unfortunately, it didn't quite end the way he wanted it to after a logistical error by the team, taking the wrong car to Road America. Indeed, many of you may remember that he got to the trailer of the car, and well, as they were rolling the car out, he found out that it wasn't his Ferrari 296, that they had packed a Mercedes AMG Evo into the lorry, having shipped it all the way from the United Kingdom. And well, somebody in the logistics team definitely got quite a bit of a telling off, I can tell you that. But for Jordan Maymar, in the end, it was a second place finish in the championship, but a well-deserved one. Very unfortunate not to take the crown, but that's the way it went. I do expect that he had a bit of a smile on his face with regards to finishing still inside the top 3 and picking up multiple victories on the way over the course of the season. But as this warm-up session now comes to a close, a few lap times coming in there, and you can see that 34.075 from Lodder been an indication of how far off the pace they will be at the start, as I think the drivers will have gone to their race setups here and full fuel setups as well. Well, as we do see a bit of a run wide of Max Dean there in the all-black Ferrari, it is time, ladies and gentlemen, to head to the grid for round number 2 of the championship here in the SimRacing International GT3 Championship powered by Trophy.ai, and you're tuning in to Split B here at Circuit Zandvoort. So as our drivers make their way onto the grid, this is how they'll line up. On pole position then, taking pole versus his teammate from the Hungaroring, it's Menno Bloem for SimRacing Team Lowlands 2. Meanwhile, in the sister machine, it's Vincent Lodder for SimRacing Team Lowlands 2, who in fact Team 1, who joins him on that front row of the grid. Between the two Dutchmen, there was nothing other than 500s, and they, together, will now try to run away with proceedings or go battling into the corner, depending on whether we're going to see the Dutch Civil War or the Dutch Resistance. If it is the latter, it'll be the Dutch Resistance against Stephen Codman, with the Axis Simsports Red driver looking to hold on to third place and trying to move forward. Robin Noel Brown starts full for GPX Simsports Xenon, having a brilliant qualifying performance there on his debut round for this season, and therefore can he move further forward, can he get onto the podium? From the two Ford Mustangs on the second row of the grid, we then break up the pairings. It's no longer the Netherlands Arc, and it will be the McLaren of Jason Hodgson, who starts in 5th place for Phoenix Racing Green. He'll be joined on the third row of the grid by Peter Duke for DC Simsport in the Mercedes AMG Evo. Then we have Tim van den Ham, the third member of the SimRacing Team Lowlands crew, starting inside this top 10. Alongside him, Liam Fraser for Moonshiners Racing Club. Then we have David Hutchison for Axis Simsports Red with a good qualifying performance there, starting 9th ahead of Adam Baker for LS Race, who completes your top 10. Mark Johnson begins this one in 11th for Axis Simsports Red ahead of Christopher Starswell for Simcast Racing Team UK, and he managed to just out-inch James Howarth in the end with the Aston Martin driver for Dexterous Motorsports Zemex starting in 13th. 14th goes to Nick Stubb for Vulcan Fastest by Glass Tech. They've got their front bumper stuck back on the car, I believe, after the altercation in the pit lane, and he was just ahead by a small margin there of half a tenth, ahead of Jakob Krafik with the privateer starting in 15th. 16th goes the way of Mark van Mulken for SimRacing Team Lowlands 2, ahead of his teammate Mark De Vries, who starts 17th place. And then we do see Simon Clifton promoted from Evo to Pro after round number 1, where he starts in 18th here today and has got quite a tall order, but to be fair, he'll revel in the challenge. Your top 20 is all Pro drivers, and they're completed by Tom Cordy for Phoenix Racing Green and DC Motorsports Jared Love, who qualifies very far down the order today and nowhere compared to where he wanted to start compared to the Hungaroring. Outside the top 20 then, in 21st place, it's Klaas Vellen, continuing the theme of pro drives of Phoenix Racing Green. Adam Smith for Eurotitans Endurance had a frustrated qualifying performance. He starts in 22nd. Then we come to your Evo pole sitter, Jan Nagy for Iris Racing, a brilliant effort from the Swede, ahead of Chris Jennings for Axis Simsport Blue. On row 13, it's Robin Panier for Simcoach, ahead of Denny Ploger, who starts in 26th place for MJK Sim Racing. And then we do have Victor Van Ziest in 27th for MJK Sim Racing, ahead of Dean Sheesby for Moonshiners Racing Club. Steve Rubino and James Fraser for Hobo Racing and Moonshiners Racing Club respectively complete your top 30. Watch out for them, they'll both be doing battle into turn number 1, I'm certain, with then Andy Chell just behind them, also looking to go on the charge from 31st place for Quatermass Motorsport. Ross Young begins this one in 32nd, and then on the 17th row of the grid, it is Jamie Bardwell, the privateer ahead of Fotis Katihos for Split Strat Esports. And then Stuart Rice begins this one in 35th, just behind for Phoenix Racing Red, and Aston Martin ahead of Callum Morrow for LS Racing. From the Irishman, it's the Briton of Rob Gregg for Moonshiners Racing Club, ahead of Jim Fox, who starts 38th on the grid. And then completing your top 40, it's Billy Brinkley for 9 Pegasus Panthera and Matthew Hunter for Simcast Racing Team UK. Outside the top 40, we've still got a few to go. Let's not forget about them. Starting in 41st place, it's Paul Maffey for Phoenix Racing Red, ahead of Flatline Racing's Matt Stace, with Alex Boniface and Dave Collier making up your 22nd row for Dexterous Motorsports Zemex and DC Motorsport. Then on the penultimate row of the grid, it's the privateer of Martin Brandon, ahead of Max Dean for Split Strat Esports. And on your final row, 47th, David Pilcher for Team MGB, and 48th, Robert McNaughton for Dexterous Motorsports Quem. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's how they all line up. 48 drivers have made the way to the Netherlands today, and as they get ready to go racing for an hour-long event here in round number 2 of the SimRacing International GT3 Championship, tuning, of course, to Split B. Well, there are plenty of questions that are gradually developing over the course of the season, but the big one at the front, which of the two Dutchmen will be leading after turn number 1? Will it be Menno Bloem, or will Vincent Lodder, his teammate, get revenge back for how it all played out at the Hungaroring? Hopefully fairly, of course. We will see. Or will it be the Ford Mustangs of Stephen Codman and Robin Noel Brown who will be able to drive a spike between the two teammates, as Codman did at the Hungaroring? Well, for all that and more, we have only got 2 corners and a start-finish straight just to decide how they all begin this race, and in 60 minutes to decide how it all ends. And without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, it's to Menno Bloem to take us to the green for 60 minutes of racing. And it's lights out and away we go for round number 2 of the championship for Split B, as Menno Bloem gets the better start compared to Lodder. Lodder tucks in immediately behind, but look at Codman on the inside. Instant further back, big instant potentially occurring down the start-finish straight. We do seem to have lost the back half of the field from about 31st downwards. Somebody's got caught up and somebody else has got caught up. That's Noel Brown. Noel Brown's gone around and right into the middle of the road. They're all going to have to fan out here. It is going to be chaos as they head in towards turn number 2. It's gone wrong for a couple of drivers, and it's suddenly led to a big domino effect. Now, some drivers will gain massively as a result of this, others will lose out massively. We'll have to try and unpick all the pieces when we can, but indeed it has been a nightmare start for a few drivers, and therefore it's going to be plenty of replays upcoming. We try to cipher through all the bits and bobs. And meanwhile, at the front of the field, Menno Bloem and Vincent Lodder already trying to tear away as Stephen Codman gives chase. Peter Duke, he's up into 4th place, and well, 2 places gained after the misfortune of Noel Brown. Jason Hodgson has also come up into 5th, with Tim van den Ham falling on through, and Liam Fraser is there as well. A bit further back in the rear of the picture, look at Nick Stubb there, 4th, Vulcan and fastest by Class Tech Racing. He's had a great start, already up into 11th place, and onto the back of Adam Baker already. Cars round there as well, somebody to the gravel, and that is Tim van den Ham and Jason Hodgson. Hodgson has had the spin in the McLaren, meanwhile van den Ham has survived it and gotten straight on. But both drivers there having a lot of frustration, and meanwhile Katos, well, he's looking to do battle with Mark De Vries here. He's in the middle of the road, but in the end makes sure to keep Cordy behind as Starswell tries to go all the way around the outside in the BMW M4 for SimRacing Team UK, and Tom Cordy says to him that that's not going to work any which way. Well, as they all head in towards the end of this lap, looking a bit further back there, you can see your Evo leader, your pole sitter. He's still leading in the Evo class. It's Jan Nuggy, and somebody's got it wrong there. Rear bumper coming off a car. I'm not quite sure how that's happened, but somebody's lost a rear bumper there, and as they roar the way towards the timeline, this is going to get very claustrophobic. Coming down towards turn 1, they're going to be 4 wide in the middle of your screen. Well, in fact, it's 3 wide at the end, but still, you don't normally go 3 wide down the start finish straight. In the middle is Jan Nuggy, pinched on the inside there. Bit of contact. That's contact with the Porsche of none other than Victor Van Ziest, and it's going to send Jan Nuggy around. And suddenly, James Fraser in his Porsche 992, a damaged one at that. You can see on the front left side of the car from the driver's perspective. He's now leading the Evo class. In fact, that's not damage, that's the paint scheme, my apologies. But as he makes way around the outside of Robin Powney, he's trying to battle here with the sim coach driver. And well, Fraser moves up into 21st place. My good lord, you could not make this up how this race has started. And well, some of the biggest gainers, Dave Collier, who remember I said about the fact after the Hungaroring, don't fret if he started all the way at the back of the field, he will find a way through. He started 14th in Evo, he's now into 6th place. He has roared his way through the field, through all the chaos and calamity. He's right behind Steve Rubino, and right now Alex Boniface is also giving chase. But these drivers all keeping their head down as much as possible. As Andy Chell, meanwhile, is missing a rear wing. He's missing half a car at the back there, and well, he rejoins. That's at turn number 7. Now, has he been aided on his adventure? Has he made a mistake of his own volition? I'm not quite sure, but what I can definitely tell you is that is not a happy car there, that Aston Martin for Quatermass Motorsport, and there will be a story to that one as Matt Stace now starts to get a little bit closer to him. And well, we do have Jan Nuggy, Paul Maffey, Robin Noel Brown and Jamie Bardwell all in the pit lane undergoing repair work, but I suspect there's a lot more wounded cars than just those. And well, Mark Van Mulken and also Simon Clifton have also been caught up already, and well, we will try and understand what's happened to their machines. But meanwhile, come back to the close race, and here comes Nick Stubb making another move. Stubb is on a mission here to charge his way through the field. He's gained 7 places as a result of this if he makes it stick. Hutchison meanwhile on the outside goes inside of the King, elbows out between them, and Stubb right now not giving him whatsoever, and Hutchison is refusing to break the resistance here as they come down in towards turn number 3. And more Indian Stubb now on the switchback, run out the corner, but you can see the battle of the two V8 machines. It is going to be 6.3 litres versus 5 litres, and the American machine, the American muscle, 5 litres in its calibre. Well, right now he's going to hold on. There's Hutchison for Axis Simsports Red as Nick Stubb finds that he's hit a bit of a brick wall here and he's got to try and break it down. But how's he going to do so, given the fact that right behind him is Adam Baker, and you've also got Jakob Krafik close up to the back of them. It is getting very, very close and very, very tense between them as they come on through, and we haven't even cleared the opening 5 minutes of this race yet, let alone a full hour. And that goes to show you, I think, that right now we are in for the long haul here in terms of how this is all going to play out. But Stubb there having a bit of a poor run coming out of turn number 10. That is going to give Hutchison a bit of breathing room for a moment. However, Hutchison will be caught up here as he makes his way into the chicane. This is where the Mustang will struggle, is these heavier braking zones when he naturally has to brake a little bit earlier, and it feels very loose, but Stubb gets it wrong coming out of turn number 12, and the car goes around, and Stubb into the barrier there, and with just a bit too much throttle coming out of turn number 12, runs the car wide. Surely not a rejoin like that, oh my good lord, and was the whole field fans around him. I wouldn't be surprised there if a driver or two protest that as a bit of an unsafe rejoin there, because that, well, I can tell you what, they almost ran out of oxygen here in the commentating booth with my heart coming out my chest, so I thought that was getting up in a 4-5 wide instant. But hold the phone, folks, as it's too wide between the two leaders. Vincent Lodder trying to go around the outside of Bloem through the corner. Here they come, and Vincent Lodder takes the lead of this race off of Menno Bloem. I think Bloem had a bit of a poor run through turn number 1, and Lodder now says, okay, it's my race to lead now. And can Menno catch back up to Vincent? That's what we'll see as Stephen Codman 2 seconds behind. He's losing the two leaders to a degree. Peter Duke in 4th place, meanwhile, he's 3 seconds off of Codman, and he's not really breaking away from Fraser and Johnson at the moment, with David Hutchison also in the mix. And the Axis Simsport pair, I think, will be very keen to try and work together as this race deepens. But with that, we take a look back at some of the big moments on the start of the race, ladies and gentlemen, including what exactly happened to Dean Sheesby right at the start, and here it is. So this was in fact the formation lap there, so it does seem as though we've had a bit of an error occur with regards to what's happened right at the start between drivers. In fact, if we do wind forward there, I think that might have been a bit of a glitch. Well, here was the race start, and Ross Young was right in the epicenter of the big opening instant. Well, some drivers got it wrong, and there was Andy Chell being pranged on the rear by a car. Ross Young then ended up as collateral there, so Andy Chell ended up right at the epicenter of everything that happened. And well, that was the opening instant there. Do we get a further replay? Yes, we do. And well, where was Chell's car in all of it? Here he goes, and there was contact. There was the Acura that made the contact. To try and understand which Acura that was, I think that was Jamie Bardwell getting it wrong off the launch. Can we get on board with Jamie Bardwell to see what he saw? Yes, we can. So they went, built up, and was they made the way away. Andy Chell went on the brakes there. Ooh, goodness me, and hit the back, did Bardwell. I wonder whether there was a bit of a concertina and whether somebody perhaps thought the race had not started, or had incorrectly thought it had started and then had to suddenly slam on the brakes. So everyone built up pace and then had to react to what was a Phil concertina back together. There's a lot of interpretations to that, but we're not going to point the fingers at anyone. There will be a lot of stewarding around that one. Meanwhile, this happened to Robin Noel Brown coming out of turn 1 into 2. Ran wide there, lost the rear left tyre, and that went to the gravel. And after this, he was a passenger in the car. He did everything in his power to stop it rolling back on. He put the brakes on, tried to hook the steering wheel round. The car refused, and in the end, Simon Clifton, one of the drivers there, to come right into the scene of Robin Noel Brown. A nightmare moment. And from Matthew Hunter's perspective, this was Matthew Hunter making his way after all the chaos at the very start of the Simcast Racing Team UK driver, made his way into turn number 1. As he did, we got it wrong there, and I think some damage on the car and cold tyres may have just put a bit of a spike in his race start before he even made it to the next crash site. But as he then had to recover the car, we had this happen to Jason Hodgson a little bit later. And this was Hodgson coming all the way in towards what was turn number 10. And well, at the time, under a bit of pressure, was there contact? There might have been a slender touch there with Tim van der Ham. Van der Ham got hooked and around the outside. Hodgson being turned around there and coming off the worst of the two of them. So those were the big instance of lap number 1. We then had subsequently, I believe, a bit more chaos on lap number 2, or did we? Well, if we did, we had this for Nick Stubb, in fact, and this was on lap number 3 only months ago. And well, this was Stubb getting it wrong. Many of you may remember we were riding on board at the time, so he came out the corner, went out wide to the grass with too much throttle, chasing down the Axis Simsport car, and sent his way around into the barrier. And that was Nick Stubb's charge, very quickly blunted. And then the rejoin afterwards made a lot of question marks arise with regards to other drivers around him. But as we come back to your live racing, well, we have missed a lap or two, but still, as we come back to it, more to play out here, that is certain. And looking back to James Howarth here, where he's on the charge versus Jakub Krafik. And well, Krafik, to be fair, had an absolutely brilliant start to this race, up from 15th to 9th, 6 places gained. And well, he'll be feeling very happy with that one as we look to the class positions. Now, as we can see, it is the best part of 18 Evo drivers here today, of which we do have 2 now a lap or more down, the former Nagi and Maffei at the bottom of the timing tower. But in both classes, there are going to be many battles still to play out as this race deepens in its distance. Speaking of which, Jason Hodgson here looking up the inside of James Fraser. That was very close to curtains there, and I think Hodgson trying to get past Fraser, the Evo leader, but what he's now done is backed himself to the second place Evo driver of Denny Ploger. And Tom Cordy's catching up on this, and this is the entwining of an Evo and a pro pair of drivers here, and how they all essentially now want to battle in their own classes, but they've got to pass each other. But of course the tactic, if your name is James Fraser, is to keep Hodgson behind, because then he acts as your buffer to Denny Ploger. Ploger, meanwhile, wants to clear Hodgson. Hodgson wants to clear Fraser, because if he can, then he goes hunting after Adam Smith. So it really is now the situation whereby everyone has to be on their best behaviour, but everyone wants to bare their teeth and pass each other or prevent the other from passing one another, because they've all got their own aspirations how this race will look. Meanwhile, down the start-finish straight, well, that is the Chris Jennings McLaren that's missing a front bumper, and with it has a lot of aerodynamic drag in the Axis Simsports Blue machine. Nick Stubb at the insider in there, and Stubb right now in the better state of car. Well, the Mercedes does tour its way on past in the end, but Jennings not giving up, and well, I suspect he will try and go the distance he can to get to the pit before he comes in and takes that fast repair. He doesn't want to make a second pit stop, and that will be his game plan. But roaring his way through turns 4, 5, 6 and 7. And right now he's got to be patient here and try to handle the car, as the car of course will not be in the best of conditions. A bit further down the order behind Steve Rubino, he's currently the third place Evo driver. He is chasing after Tom Cordy, who is putting pressure on second place Evo driver Denny Ploger. So Rubino there still, having started third in class, he's gained a couple of places overall. So Rubino here still on a mission, as hold up a second, that's Hodgson on the inside of Fraser coming into turn number 9, and now Fraser defending to the inside of turn number 10. It's going to cause them to go 2 by 2. Cordy up the inside there, Ploger. And I think Denny Ploger playing the smart game here, which is let the pro drivers go. They're only going to be a nuisance in his mind. Steve Rubino, however, now gets onto the back of this as we ride on board, looking down over the front bumper of the Ford Mustang. And Rubino here looking all over the back of his rivals. But what could he do? Of course, the Goliath Mustang, as there's a car around there. That is the car of James Howarth that's gone for a spin, coming out to turn number 12. Not quite sure how that's happened. We will get a replay of it shortly to explain. But James Howarth has dropped a long way down. He was, at the time, running in 10th place, and now he's relegated himself to outside the top 20. But down the start-finish straight, we look back to our live camera, and as they do, that's Fraser on the left-hand side. Meanwhile, on the inside, that's Hodgson, and in the middle, that is an attempt there by another Tom Cordy to try and get himself involved. Denny Ploger, meanwhile, backs off. Steve Rubino says, hello, Denny, I'm coming for you. So Ploger can't back off that much. Fraser battling side by side there as they head in towards turn 2 and 3. Fraser will be passed by Hodgson as they head on through, and as they make their way out the corner, well, there goes Cordy now looking around the outside, and I think Tom Cordy will get this done as well. Tom Cordy has been very patient, and his patience has been rewarded considerably, because Jason Hodgson has had to really batter and ram his way through versus James Fraser. And now the top 3 of Evo are all together, and these 2 pro drivers battling for 21st in their class, they are gradually pull away. Look at the gap they're already opening. Indeed, a couple of attempts there coming out of turn number 7. Fraser now, well, he's got to try and get himself settled down here as Ploger looks up the inside, goes all in. I think that's offensive defensive there from Ploger, trying to make sure Rubino can't outbrake him. But the problem is on that inside line, there's so many marbles. If you look at the track surface, you'll see where the dust picks up there on those inside lines into these hairpin corners. And as they're coming out, Ploger right now side by side with Fraser, had a very poor run out of turn number 10, went overly deep. Ploger looking to the outside and inside run at turns 11 and 12. He goes for it here, but Fraser there slams the door shut. Ploger was going to run out of road either way, so Denny Ploger brings it back into second place. And Steve Rubino just watches it. He decides not to attack anymore, and the reason for that is understandably, but he wants to try and pick them both off at the same time. And I think his logic is going to be, keep on fighting, gents, and I'll pick up whatever you leave behind. And arguably, if they take each other off the road, he'll pick up the lead of the race and perhaps run away with it. The next nearest driver in the Evo class is Callum Morrow, the Irishman right now for LS Racing. He's not too far behind, in fact. He's 3 seconds off of Rubino, so he could get involved here. And Alex Boniface as well. He's had a reasonable start to the Dexterous Motorsports driver, and he could perhaps get involved, having started 13th in Evo. He's up to 5th in class. He started 43rd on this grid, would you believe it? And he's been able to avoid all the carnage and chaos, and that is why he's in your top 5 of the class right now. As he comes out to turn number 3, he's got a way to go. James Howarth, meanwhile, looking to go on a mission here around the outside of Jim Fox. And well, these two know each other very well from Season 8 of Split B, I can tell you that. And as they make their way through the S sequence, well, it's going to be Howarth looking around the outside, minus the front bumper. And, well, he's going to get it done, or is he? The car is wobbling really, really shakily coming out of turn number 7. That's a very technical turn there, shakily, by the way, if anybody asks. But what we mean by that is the fact that car is not turning in at all. And I suspect that with the moment he had, he's perhaps had a bit of a prang to the front of the car, and it's unsettled the front suspension, because that Aston Martin is not looking stable at all. We'd not normally expect it to be siphoning at the wheel to try and get it to turn into turn number 7, but such is what he seems to be struggling with at the moment. And well, we do take a look back to what happened to James Howarth and why he fell all the way down here. Now this was on that number 7. Oh, it was a spin like Nick Stubb coming out of turn number 12. So that explains the front end damage, because he went straight on into the tyre barrier there. That's why the tyres are there to stop cars from going straight on into what is the metal barriers. And well, for James Howarth, in the end having to wait until there's a clear bit of track to come through. And that's understandably why it took him so long to get himself turned back around. As we come back to your live racing, one more story still to play out here as Howarth and Fox side by side, but Howarth now on the inside into turn number 1 as they go on to lap number 10. That's going to be straightforward one and done for James Howarth, up to 23rd now in the pro class, and his next target in the class will be Tom Cordy. But Cordy in 22nd is 6 places overall away, and on the march now, James Howarth had to pick his way past the top 5 of the Evo class. Well, the first drive he's going to go for is Alex Boniface here, and his teammate Boniface is not going to make this hard. You can see that Boniface lifting off the throttle going through turn number 4. Fox, meanwhile, had to back off here unless he can squirm to the inside. Now, will Fox go for it? He is. He knows what's happening here. He does not want Boniface closing the door on him. So Fox says, get out of my way. And Boniface right now, I think, looked to his right hand side and suddenly realised that Porsche 992 is right there with him. The privateer cuts the inside. And well, Boniface now has got Rob Gregg behind him. Gregg here goes on the charge. Gregg looking up the inside, but can he get it stopped in time? Yes, he can, but he can't get the move done. And Rob Gregg taking all that dust on the inside into turn number 9. You can see the car wobbling as he came off the brakes, and that is where he's got no grip on the tyres as a result of the dust. And Gregg has to tuck back in behind there. And well, he definitely wants that 5th place off of Boniface, and that means now the top 4 of Evo are going to gradually run away, as it does seem as though Gregg, they're getting a little bit too adventurous under braking. In fact, straight lining under braking into turn number 11. We don't normally see that. I think Gregg there having a slight lapse of concentration and making a minor mistake that almost cost him a lot of positions. Tim van den Ham and Ross Young queue up behind him. Van den Ham here on the toe. And the SimRacing Team Lowlands driver building up a sense of speed here. And well, this Ferrari, we know in the toe, it's very quick. In its own air, it's not as quick in 5th gear. It needs a slipstream, and well, heading in towards turn number 1. I think he's going to go nice and low versus Gregg. Well, Gregg's going to try and fight it around the outside. He's got the momentum here as Rob Gregg. That Ferrari will not accelerate as quickly as the Aston Martin, but importantly, Van den Ham has got the inside into 2 and the outside of 3. And now Rob Gregg's on a low line, and this is going to cost him so much momentum. He's got no camber at the corner to play with, and Van den Ham will get that move done. And in the end, Gregg lets Ross Young go around the outside as well and says, fine, if you're all going to come through, I might as well back off for you, so I'm only losing time. Oh my good lord, that is Steve Rubino. Rubino's into the gravel. Who's that with him? That's a car that's had to tow to bits. That's Max Dean. I believe Max Dean at the time was a lap down. Now, did they come up onto Max Dean and essentially Steve Rubino's got it wrong? I'm not quite sure. But before we take a look back at that, battling here for 12th place in the Evo class, that's Andy Chels side by side with Martin Brandon, and in the end making his way around the Mercedes AMG driver. Lovely bit of side by side racing between the two. Chels on a recovery drive. Brandon as well is on a charge, given the fact that he's missed the front bumper from the open lap instant. So both drivers, they're victim of circumstances and now trying to get themselves right back in the hunt. But as they do, their battle ends for a brief moment. We take a look back at what happened there between Steve Rubino and Max Dean. Now this, oh goodness, this was very close. When in, it was Rubino and Denny Ploger making contact, and then Dean came into the scene of the instant. He got collected there as Steve Rubino had to try and get the car under control. And Dean, I think you'll have seen the Ford Mustang a little bit too late. But what exactly built that up? The side-by-side battle between them. Can we get an alternative camera angle? Well, at the time it was Ploger versus Fraser. So Fraser went defensive, Ploger on the inside. Fraser went low. Rubino cut to the inside there, thinking that Ploger was going to be keeping the door open. And Denny Ploger, I don't think he saw Rubino was there. I think Rubino went for a gap that he thought was open, and Ploger thought it was closed, and that Rubino would not go for it. And, well, our top three in the Evo class having a very near-miss moment. They all came together there, and, well, an absolute monster of a moment, no doubt about it. The third camera angle we have available here, and you can see Fraser defending for his life. Rubino on the grass there as well, intriguingly, so I think he may had a moment where he thought, yes, I'm going to go for it. And now you've seen in the rear of the picture Max Dean coming through the corner and having nowhere to go as suddenly he's got a face full of Rubino. Well, Ploger's recovered better from it, but it has completely upset the top four of the Evo class. James Fraser still holds on to the lead of the Evo class. He's really making it a fortress in terms of holding on to that position. But now it's Callum Morrow who has been promoted to second place in Evo, 25th overall, and Alex Boniface, who fell all the way back to 5th place. He's now up into 3rd again, and he will be absolutely ecstatic about that when the team tell him that over the radio. However, I can imagine he'll also be getting his head down and thinking, right, I've got a lot of time still to go. We're not even at the end of 20 minutes, ladies and gentlemen. This race has had enough drama to build a novel out of it, I can tell you that, and I mean that in a good way. But as we come back now to the pro class, it's all been happening in Evo, but there's also plenty of stories unfolding here in the pros and at the very front of the field. Well, it's the Liam Fraser, Mark Johnson, David Hutchinson battle. That is for 5th through to 7th place here. It's the Corvette holding off the 2 Ford Mustangs. It is the battle of the American V8 machinery here. One being mid-engine rear-wheel drive in the form of the Corvette, the other two being front-engine rear-wheel drive. And right now, Liam Fraser, well, in the Corvette, the car that's not very popular, but those who drive it make it work. He's definitely doing a lot of work here to hold on to this 5th place. Mark Johnson and his teammate Hutchinson right now, wouldn't be surprised if they're perhaps thinking about the bigger picture strategy. One of the things they can potentially do here is fuel save. However, we should emphasise the fact that the one downside of the Ford Mustang is it does have a very aggressive fuel thirstiness, and what we mean by that is the fact even when you fuel save in this car, you are normally down on fuel versus your rivals if they've had a relatively conservative stint. So for Johnson and Hutchinson, they will be saving fuel behind Fraser because we are heading towards the strategy window, but I wouldn't be surprised if they still end up going to pits and needing the same amount of fuel as Liam Fraser when all is said and done. That Corvette, by comparison, is much kinder to its fuel tank. It takes a little bit more sips rather than big gulps. But as he heads in towards turn number 2, right now I think he'll be gulping every time he sees a Ford Mustang get close as they come through turn number 3. And that lovely round the corner there, seeing all 3 drives, all taken slightly differently, but all getting the same outcome in the amount of speed they take on towards the long stretch in towards turn number 7. Behind them, 2 seconds behind, it's the battle of the Porsches, and it is the battle of Adam Baker versus Jacob Krafik as they head up the hill. And as they roar the way down, we look back from the rear here of your LS Racing driver. He's doing very well at the moment, holding on to 8th place, having started in 10th, 2 places gained. The same for Krafik, who gained 6 places. He's been one of the bigger gainers in the top 10 overall. And well, behind him there, that is Robin Noel Brown, who is a lap down after his lap 1 instant. But he's following them on the round here, and I think he'd like to unlap himself if he can, but there is of course a big risk with that, and that is the blue flags will wave immediately, and if he can't pull away after he's unlapped himself from them, then he will suddenly incur the wrath of the 2 drivers and potentially also get a call to the stewards room afterwards to essentially say that you essentially caused a bit of a nuisance. However, I think Robin Noel Brown knows all the rules. He knows the rule book like the back of his hand, and he knows exactly what to do and what not to do, and the GPX Simsport driver with a very steady head on him. But Baker versus Krafik right now. It comes to the end of this lap. Off camera, we have had a new fastest lap race, a 31.927 from Menno Bloem in the tow of Vincent Lodder. The 2 of them exchanging lap times, and the only drivers to be lapping in the 31s currently. But everybody is gradually heading towards the 31s at the moment, it must be said. But Lodder and Bloem definitely trying to tear away off into the distance. And well, as we do come from the battle for 8th place, no real change at the moment. A bit further back, we see Mark De Vries under big pressure here from Christopher Starsmore. And Jared Love is just behind. And now flash of the lights there from Starsmore. I think that is to try and make his way past the car that is a lap down. And in fact, that is the car there of Robert Norton that's proving to be a little bit obtrusive right now. And in fact, as they make the way out of turn number 3, obtrusive from Starsmore's perspective, heading in towards the right-hander, you can see the switch around. Jared Love looking one way, then the other. And well, remember, of course, the DC Motorsport team, they are all real-life racing drivers who also do sim racing. And well, Jared Love is the exception there. He's only ever raced on the sim sim, and as we found out in his interview last time out, absolutely enjoys it, and as he comes through the right-hander, turn number 9 in towards 10, very quick on the pace, and right now trying to pick his way around the outside of Robert Norton. With the Mercedes, he'll get the traction down, and now we'll be back on the case of Crystal Starsmore as their battle is neutralised for a brief moment, and we'll love on the inside here in towards turn number 11. This is only going to go one way. It's going to go his way as McNaughton there tucks in behind. But as they come towards the end of this lap, we look back to Nick Stubb, and Stubb right now finds his way in a 4-car pack. Here's Victor Van Ziest in front of him, and behind him both Fotis Kateos and also Klaas Vellen. And Vellen right now, he's the odd one out here in a way, because of the fact that he's not perhaps gained as many places he would like compared to the other drivers here. Well, you also could say that Nick Stubb, oh goodness me, and Nick Stubb was about to say had a moment earlier on at turn number 12, and now he has a moment at the corner after it. Nick Stubb on this back end of the lap is not having a very happy day at all here in the Netherlands. How on earth has he gone sideways there at turn number 13? That's completely uncommon. You don't normally see that, and a very slow impact with the barrier as well. I suspect that's a bit of gravel that he's picked up on the rear left tyre as he tried to get the power down at turn number 30. He's just got a bit too eager, but here's a quick replay to explain. So this was coming out of the corner, and as he did so, roaring his way through the right-hander, the rear of the car let go there. He took way too much apex curb, and in the end became a passenger in the car. By the time he cleared the apex of 13, he had no control at that point, other than the car was going to swing around. And the thing with this Mercedes as well is its front mid-engine drive. It's a very unique configuration for front-engine drive cars, in the fact that you essentially have the engine in the front, as we return to your live racing, but it is behind the front axle. It is as close as possible to the driver as possible, and what that means is you've got a very interestingly positioned centre of mass of the car, in the fact the centre of mass is right in front of the driver, so when the rear lets go, the car becomes incredibly light over the rear, and so the front of the car dictates exactly where it goes, and at that point, if you try to power through it, all you're going to get is an increasing level of instability, and will in the end Stubb decide he can't get the power down. He may as well just ride the car and see if it's going to straighten out, and it didn't. All it did is went straight into the barrier. But as he makes his way into the braking zone here for turns 11 and 12, and indeed right now I think you'll be looking at this turn 12 and turn number 13 with hesitancy now, given the fact that these corners have bitten him twice in this race, and he won't want to be bitten a third time. Well, a race leader, Vincent Lodder, meanwhile, hasn't been bitten at all by the corners. But he's definitely going to potentially be bitten by Menno Bloem, his teammate here, as these two are pushing each other along. And the lap times between these two are absolutely staggering. 32.2 for Vincent Lodder last time out, for Bloem at 32.3. Stephen Codman, 8.5 seconds behind, 32.6, and his best laps have been 32.6s, where Lodder and Bloem have been in 31.9s. The SimRacing Team Lowlands team are just running rampant with this, and Stephen Codman, meanwhile, in a very lonely third place. I think at this point, thinking to himself, okay, I might as well just settle for the podium and see what comes of the race at the front in case they take each other out. And the one rule, of course, is you want to beat your teammate, but the other rule of motorsport is you never want to take your teammate out of the race, because otherwise it will be pandemonium. And well, I can imagine right now that SimRacing Team Lowlands will be saying to their teammates, you can have fun, just don't do anything silly with it. And well, Lodder and Bloem, I think I'll be keeping to the fun mantra wherever they can. But speaking of some fun going on here, we do ride on board, looking down over the front end of Katehotis' car, the split track esports driver, who had an absolutely fun race at the Hungaroring. He enjoyed plenty of battles there, and well, today he's enjoying another fun race, having started all the way down in 34th place, or what was 29th in the Pro Class. He was one of the last starters in the Pro Class. Well, he's definitely enjoying a brilliant run here as the penultimate starter of the class, and right now running in 15th, chasing down 14th place man Van Ziest as he makes his way on towards the next lap. You can see the difference in traction there of the Porsche versus the McLaren. These two cars very close on performance in most aspects, in the fact the Porsche is the ultimate cornering car, but the balance of performance dictates that it's the slowest car in the straights. The McLaren, meanwhile, is very strong at direction changes and also low speed corners, has a little bit more straight line speed by comparison, but the one downside of it is the fact that in medium speed corners, particularly medium speed corners with direction changes, the McLaren can feel quite unstable. So this middle sector can actually feel nasty for the McLaren versus the Porsche. Rear engine rear wheel drive, the car in front, mid-engine rear wheel drive the McLaren will ride on board with, but the Greek driver right now using that mid-engine rear wheel drive drivetrain to good effect as they head in towards turn number 7. Now the concertina effect here will see him close up and then gradually fall away, but what he'll be looking for here is places where Van Zist is not quite happy with the way he's approaching the corner, not hitting the apex. An example there at turn number 8, where he just misses the apex by a slender margin, by about 1/6 of a car, but that cost him a bit of time. Again there at turn number 9, you can see Katos a bit later on the apex, sets himself up a better run. Meanwhile, Van Zist putting the car right in the middle of the apex there and approaching it early. Not quite as happy with the rotation, but of course the one upside of the Porsche is the fact because it is rear engine rear wheel drive, it means the rear of the car comes around more quickly than any other car because of the weight distribution, and therefore you can get away with tighter approaches to corners if you so desire. Katos just watching then as they head towards the end of this lap, and as they do come up behind a driver in front of them, albeit it is a driver who is coming up to being a lap down. That is going to be, I believe, Robert McNaughton there, as we have got several drivers into the pit lane. So the pit stop window has started now with good effect. We've got Matt Stace and Robin Noel Brown in for what will be their mandated pit stops for fuel. We've also had David Pilcher in, but from them, we've also had David Hutchison. He's coming in from a very high position. In fact, Hutchison has made his way in all the way from 7th place. That's a gamble for David Hutchison. I would not have expected a top 10 runner to come into the pits within the first half an hour, but he's decided there's a way to do it. Meanwhile, speaking of trying to find a way to do it, Crystal Star's been under pressure with Jared Love, who's poking one way then the other. Love can't quite find it at the moment, but the Simcast Racing Team UK driver definitely under tremendous pressure to try and hold on to what is currently 10th place, with David Hutchison coming into the pit lane a length from the road before that. But if Hutchison doesn't have a good pit stop or he finds a lot of traffic, he may end up being relinquished of his position and having to sit a long way further back. Also, we do have none other than Jason Hodgson here, passing Robin Pownier. And they swap place, and Pownier, they're having a very poor run coming out of turn number 7 and giving the place to Hodgson. I don't think very happy the way the car's gone, but also I think respect to the fact that Hodgson started in 5th place overall versus Pownier, who started in 25th place, and therefore wanting to work with Hodgson, not against him at this point in the race. As we then come to Katos versus Van Zist up the inside in towards turn number 11. Classic move there, makes it count, and well, he's found the pace coming out to turn number 10 has Katos, and now coming in towards turn number 13. Can he seal the deal? Because if not, we're then going to have a lot of pressure building from this man of Van Zist as they come out of the final corner. We ride on board with the 150, but I think here the gap may be a little bit too pronounced. It does stand at 3.5 tenths as they power their way down the start for the straight. It closes to 3 tenths, then to 2.5, and then to 2 tenths, and onto the brakes they go. Van Zist will have the better brakes here, goes nice and deep into the corner. He feels a lot more confident in being aggressive through there, but perhaps the too aggressive car spun round there. Not quite sure whose car that was. I believe that's the car of James Fraser. That's a big development there. James Fraser going around because of that, I believe, unless I'm mistaken, is our Evo leader who's ejected himself down the order. He's literally just left the pit lane and gone for a spin. We're going to need to get a replay of that because Fraser's race has gone from good to great to disaster in the space of a pit stop and a pit exit. And here's the replay to explain what happened. Now, in fact, this was James Fraser. He'd already done his pit stops, so coming out of turn number 1. Does he just make a mistake here of his own volition? Yes, he does. Rear wheel spin up, gets the power down, and the car comes sliding across the front end there of Billy Brinkley leaving the pit lane. Well, that's a surprise and not a welcome one to be certain. Well, in fact, there's Brinkley leaving the pit lane. That was Rob Gregg just in front, and well, in the end, for James Fraser, a big moment, and that has cost him the Evo lead. So now the question you will naturally ask is, who is the Evo leader? Well, in all the chaos, it's Dave Collier at the moment. However, remember, this man has yet to pit. The same for Matthew Hunter behind him, 14 seconds behind. And Hunter's under pressure from Denny Ploger, who has yet to pit. So Ploger without a pit stop after that big instant that he had with Steve Rubino. Well, it does mean that your effective leader, we believe, if we are correct in this, ladies and gentlemen, is Stuart Rice in the Evo class, albeit I think Rice may not be your leader because he had to come into the pits for a quick repair right at the start of the race, as did Andy Chell behind him. So that would mean Steve Rubino is your class leader, unless Ploger has taken the pit stop and it's not come up on our timing tower, which can happen every so often, to be fair. We may have a pit stop that has been missed effectively by our system, but right now at least it seems as though Steve Rubino, strategy wise, is the Evo leader. We won't 100% guarantee that. Anything can happen before this is all said and done. We've still got some pit stops to play out, but we believe that is the state of play. Another state of play at the very front of the field is that whilst Menno Bloem is still running out there, we have had Vincent Lodder come into the pits from the lead of the race, and he's come out there in amongst a bit of traffic, lap down traffic, with Robin Noel Brown and Martin Brandon right with him. little bit swapping their places around, as that was Noel Brown taking 40th place off of Brandon. But the driver who was running in the lead, he's decided to go for the pit stop strategy. He's gone early, whereas Bloom's going longer, and he thinks he can get this done. Speaking of getting moves done, Mark De Vries there gets a place for the Simracing Team Lowlands team versus Crystal Stars. We're out of sorts. They're coming out of turns 11 and 12. Here comes Jared Love looking around the outside. Makes the move count there, does Love. A lovely bit of opportunism there. And Starsmore, meanwhile, gets caught up behind his teammate who has to go higher there. And well, his teammate being none other than, I believe, David Pilcher. And they swap the places around now and come down towards that time line. But I think Starsmore will be a little bit frustrated at that one. But hold up, Mark De Vries is not clear of the coast because Jared Love looks up the inside here, and the DC Motorsport Mercedes goes for it, but on that inside line he won't be able to carry the speed that De Vries can, and De Vries gets back ahead for now into turn 2. Love tries to force it. De Vries runs a little bit wide, so Love does get the upper hand here into turn number 3, but now can he capitalise on it? He tucks it down, he tries to go for the switchback. He expected De Vries to go high, but Love in the end finds a face full of Ferrari, but it's going to be too wide now, heading through turns 4, 5, 6 into 7. Who's going to be leading coming into 7? Love tries to focus around the inside. There's contact between the two of them. It sends De Vries sideways, but somehow he gets pointed back up the straight and narrow. Love is out front bumper, and Crystal Starsmore takes one place back, and I wouldn't be surprised here if he's thinking to himself, I'll take another one shortly, as De Vries is crawling along right now trying to get his bearings back together. And coming up behind in gradual time will be Dean Sheesby, who 3 seconds behind. He'll suddenly notice that this whole pack of cars has very quickly come towards him and be asking the question, what exactly has happened here? Oh, goodness me, ladies and gentlemen. Well, Love and De Vries, neither one was going to give way, and Jared Love there, I think he'll feel as though he was squeezed coming through turn 5 into 6. I think De Vries would argue that there was no real place for Love to exist with him through turn number 6, but either way they've made the contact and now they have to deal with the consequences of it. And well, into the pit lane comes Menno Bloem from the lead of the race, as does Stephen Codman and also Peter Stewart and Liam Fraser. Mark Johnson meanwhile stays out and goes on to lead a lap of this race as the Axis Simsports Red driver. He's been able to save some fuel in this Ford Mustang, and well, I can imagine a lot of short shifting there and lifting and coasting, primarily lift and coast to be fair. Short shifting not that effective as a fuel saving technique. And as he comes in towards turn number 3, well, Johnson right now I think enjoying track position, and the fact he's got a clear track in front of him is giving him a lot of confidence as to what he can do. And Adam Baker for LS Racing trying to do the same here, which is just use the open track in order to give himself plenty of breathing room. But with that, Menno Bloem has come out the pit. He's come out well ahead of Vincent Lodder. I think Vincent Lodder has been involved in some sort of incident because of the fact he is a long way back, and I'm not quite sure why he's so far back. Lodder has dropped all the way down to 11th place. Now, the pit stop times have been practically identical between Bloem and Lodder. There must have been a lap, and we haven't got any data to suggest what exactly happened, but something's gone wrong for Vincent Lodder on a particular lap, because Menno Bloem has come out here in 3rd place. Vincent Lodder, meanwhile, has come out in 11th place. Yes, that's right, 8 places between them. We do have a few drivers in between them who have yet to pit, including Jason Hodgson, Robin Pownier, and also Nick Stubb and Tim van den Ham. So 4 drivers in total, but even so, that does mean that you have a 4-place delta, and Lodder has suddenly lost out, and there's nothing statistically to explain why. He did spend 3 seconds longer pits end to end, but the stationary time was practically the same. But that's not a 3-second gap that's developed there. That is a gap of the best part of 12 seconds that's developed. Stephen Codman, he's battling here with Tim van den Ham, and well, van den Ham right now lap down as Codman goes to the gravel. We've got another car rejoined from the gravel there. Who's that? Oh, it's all gone wrong there. That is McNaughton going around. We've also got a Porsche going slowly. That's Paul Murphy who's had it go wrong. He's just waiting on that inside line there for McNaughton to get out the way, or at least clear himself around. So I think both drivers there playing sandcastles, and in the end Stephen Codman joining them in solidarity. But as we do see a car coming into the pit lane there, that will be, I believe, Tim van den Ham making his way onto the pits, as we will also have Adam Baker and Jason Hodgson into the pit lane, and Mark Johnson as well. But coming out the pits, Adam Baker, it's a very quick stop for the LS Racing driver. And I think he's going to come out ahead just about Vincent Lodder. There's Lodder on the right of your picture, but in fact Lodder is going to get alongside him into turn number 2, but Baker holds the inside line, cuts it tight. That's going to put him on a low line here into turn number 3. Lodder's got to go all the way around the outside here. 2 wide they enter, 1 wide they exit, because Vincent Lodder sweeps around the outside and retakes 6th place overall and in the pro class. And now as everybody swaps back into position, indeed it has been a big shake-up here with regards to all of our drivers overall and in their classes. But what we can say is that Menno Bloem is in control of this race. 1 driver is yet to pit. Robin Powney has yet pitted in the Corvette Z06. Well, he's all the way up into second place. He will naturally fall back down the order when he pits, most likely in this lap. But good on the man for extending that fuel tank to the best part of 24 laps. And, well, we have said time and time again, this Corvette has a very, very kind fuel tank with the car. And, well, right now, Powney demonstrating just how long you can get it to go. He's driven a very solid strategic race. And I wouldn't be surprised if he's gained several places as a result of just going the longest of everybody, or what is known as the overcut strategy. But he'll come around and head into the pit shortly. As from him, we come back to Starswell versus Love. There's Starswell at the inside of Jared Love, and that is on the run in towards turn number 11. So Starswell finally clearing the man that he's had to work hard against. And with the BMW driver Simcast Racing Team UK back into the overall top 10, just behind it, Jakub Krafik. Krafik there in the foreground of the camera shot. No, it's not. In fact, it's already through. The car we were mistakenly thinking of in the foreground of the camera shot was Billy Brinkley there, we believe. In fact, it was James Fraser. My apologies. But drives heading down towards turn 1 on your screen. And Adam Baker versus David Hutchison. In front of them is Robin Noel Brown for GPX Simsport. And right now, Baker wants to clear Noel Brown. If he can't, then he's going to have to deal with his Ford Mustang. And the Mustang there of David Hutchison looking very menacing at this point of the race with 21 minutes plus a final lap to go. And well, right now I can tell you one thing, Circuit Zandvoort has definitely delivered the drama left, right and centre up and down this field, and everybody right now I think just trying to keep it together as best as possible here and trying to avoid any more drama. And we've had that drama in both the Pro and the Evo classes, and it's not just been one or the other. But speaking of drama or changes that are afoot, Denny Ploger here trying to make his way away from Stuart Rice, and well, Stuart Rice there close behind Rob Gregg with him. And in fact, Rob Gregg looking for a potential move here in the Aston Martin. This is for 6th place in Evo right now, and they're all on the back of 5th place Evo driver Matthew Hunter, who's had a poor run out the corner. Hunter goes around there, coming out of turn number 12 in a similar moment to Nick Stubb earlier on, and also subsequently Robert McNaughton. But right now, for Matthew Hunter, that's going to put him all the way down the order. That is a big hammer blows. Oh, Phil comes on through there, and Hunter thankfully does not reverse across it, but he's going to lose a ton of places there as he now tries to get himself back together. But that is not a happy moment for the man who was enjoying a very good run in 5th place in the Evo class for some time. Mark Johnson is on a wet compound from what I'm hearing here, ladies and gentlemen. It's not on our screen. We don't have the tyre compounds displayed, but whilst everybody else is on a dry tyre, Mark Johnson has gone to the wet tyre. Now, that's surely got to be a mistake in the pit lane. There's no reason why he would be on a wet compound, but he's gone to it. He spent ages in the pit lane. All 4 tyres have been changed on that car. They've all gone to wet. There's been a huge blunder for Axis Simsports Red there, and he's going to drop down the order like a stone. If he doesn't pit, that wet tyre is going to become a slick very quickly, as meanwhile, that's elbows out there between Dave Collier and the other car. Not quite sure who that is. I think that's McNaughton there in the 31. Yes, it is, who right now a lap down. I think he's just trying to pick his way and pick his places around. But as the drivers make the way through there, that's Mark Johnson on a wet tyre you see in the foreground of the Ford Mustang, and that car is not going quick, as there goes Dave Collier right up the inside of McNaughton and sweeps the place off him as McNaughton gets a little bit too close to the rear of the Ford Mustang. But coming towards the pit lane, surely we will see a duck to the pits for Mark Johnson shortly, albeit we're not going to see it in its entirety because we're going to come back to Matthew Hunter here. And well, after his big spin, he's battling with Martin Brandon. Car in front there's been a bit of a turnaround for Liam Fraser's Corvette. So Fraser's had a bit of a nightmare moment. The pro driver, and in fact I think Liam Fraser going even further down the order, and Martin Brandon trying to pick his way back past one of the lead lap cars. And well, Brandon trying to unlap himself, but that's not going to work as they come through that left-hander and in towards turn number 13. And Brandon right now having to go defensive again for 10th place in the Evo versus Hunter and Matt Stace on the back of this. And well, right now we have the 2 German marks of BMW and Mercedes. We're being a Mercedes sandwich filled with a BMW filling. But heading down the start-finish straight, well, they have got 19 minutes still to go. Night time is gradually making its sleepy way here. And well, these drivers all fighting for the final top 10 spot, and understandably these points will feel like a win to them if they can take them. Matt stays right now close, not close enough as we ride aboard the front bumper of the number 99 car. Right into left he comes, and as he does, well, going through the heavily cambered corner here, you get a real good sense of just how much the circuit elevates away from that apex there as we ride on board with Stace's car. Indeed, an absolutely huge amount of elevation change. The gradient so severe that you can't walk up at it. You have to drive on it, and you have to drive at speed, as otherwise naturally the car will gravitate down towards the low point. But Stace here losing the pace versus Hunter and Brandon as he falls a little bit further back. But whilst all this is happening, we've had a poor run through turn number 10 for Denny Ploger, who, with their McLaren going slowly, I believe, is that Jason Hodgson who's going quite slowly there? I'm not 100% sure, but somebody's had it go wrong. And well, as they come through, I don't think that's the car Jason Hodgson. I think Hodgson's been involved in a separate incident, but Denny Ploger definitely caught up. Can we get a replay of what's happened to Denny Ploger? Yes, we can. And well, this was Ploger making his way through. So car going slowly there. That was Jan Nagio, in fact, just taking it very easy. He's a lap down on these guys. Ploger then, of his own volition, into turn number 10, just went a bit deep and overcooked it on the rear of the car. And well, then it was Stuart Rice and Rob Gregg making the way on past. So Ploger just making a mistake of his own doing. But coming on back, that is going to be there. Well, the DC Motorsport Mercedes going up the inside of Ploger and putting a lap on him. And I believe that was the car of Peter Duke, your third place runner overall, where everything is now shaping up. As being the things shaping up, well, where do we stand with regards to the front of the field in the Evo class? We can confirm that now that we have had all the pit stops play out, Steve Rubino is your Evo leader in 25th overall, and well, he is leading the class ahead of Dave Collier, who's into second, and well, Dave Collier, who started 14th in the class, has gained 12 places. It's an incredible run so far from the DC Motorsport driver, and well, his name being one of the two names inside the DC Motorsport moniker, Collier being the C, meanwhile Douglas being, as in Wayne Douglas, being the D. And Collier right now definitely on a great mission here as he roars his way in towards the chicane. Alex Boniface and Callum Morrow there with him right now, a little bit further behind. Boniface holding on to third place with Morrow giving chase. The LS Racing driver there in the Porsche 992. He would like to take a spot on the podium there. It'd be a great result, but both drivers here, I think Boniface will be very eager to also make sure they don't scupper this one. And Boniface, we say, because he started in 13th place in class and has made his way all the way to third just by staying out of trouble. But I think he might be going back here shortly, folks, because as we do see, Callum Morrow getting close. Well, if Morrow needed an invitation to look for a move, he's definitely got one, but he's not quite close enough this time as the Simracing Team Lowlands 122 machine, that being in the very hands of our driver just behind, trying to discern who that is. Well, we'll get back to you on that one because it does seem as though we've lost the door number of car. Well, it's going to pick its way through. That's your race leader, Menno Bloem there, who dives between the two drivers. And in the end, they all work it out, but not without a little bit of an altercation. So Menno Bloem there taking the risk and just wanting to clear them out the way. What it has meant is that Morris found his way ahead of Boniface in all the madness there. So Callum Morris now up into third place in the Evo class. And will Menno Bloem wasting no time. But to be fair, I don't think Alex Boniface will be too pleased about how that has come to not work out for him. Meanwhile, in the Pro class, battling here between Katios and Stubb. Stubb trying to go around the outside, but finds a face full of Paul Maffey's Porsche as he comes through turn number 1. And well, Maffey can't really go anywhere else. And Katios there, well, he brings himself into 16th place. So the Split Strat Esports driver, lovely livery on the car. And the SSE machine right now holding on to 16th for the time being. And still trying to dig in here. He's getting plenty of places. He doesn't want to lose them over the distance. And we look back from the rear bumper of the 190. As right now, Katios really living the dream of enjoying some absolutely brilliant battling. But he's still got 15 minutes to go. And right now, you can understand that Nick Stubb, a very quick driver, he's got top 5 pace, but he needs to find a way sensibly past Katios, and Katios making it incredibly difficult for him in this middle sector of this lap. Exit turn number 9 there. You can see Katios right now going defensive into 10. Stubb switches back to the inside. That's a big time under braking. And well, that's bold. That is confidence. And that is a statement from the Vulcan Fasters by Garstech Racing driver, which is, if you give me an inch, I will take a mile out of it. And Stubb, a brilliant job on the brakes down. I don't think Katios had any response. He did the right thing, Katios. He took his racing line. He closed the door down as much as possible without compromising his racing line. And Stubb said, you know what? That's enough space. I'm going to go for it. And Stubb moves up into 16th place overall and in Pro. And now Katios has Adam Smith and Tim van den Ham both on his 6 here as they come out of the final quarter. And well, next lap comes up, but it's going to be a McLaren on a McLaren versus a Ferrari. And well, all three drivers in long line of stern as they head in towards that braking zone. But as they head in towards the braking zone, well, what will we see from now? It is going to be Van den Ham side by side here. And from the right-hander in towards another right-hander. No difference here. Van den Ham holding that move, but there it's going to be Smith who in the end gets ahead, as it is going to be Van den Ham who runs up high, uses all the off-road there, and well, Adam Smith in the end, I think, thought he got it, and then suddenly realised he hasn't got it. It's Jason Hodgson, meanwhile, he gets right in behind him as well. So all these two drivers, well, they are absolutely pushing each other to the limit, and well, coming through turn excuse me, at turn number 7 in towards 8. It's absolutely crazy between them all. Nobody is giving anybody any opportunity to take a bit of a breather. But as they head in towards turns 9 and 10, we say hello to SimRacing TV there, who gives us an idea of how to pronounce Katios' surname. And, well, we will try and fix that a bit later on. But as we see our 190 driver here side by side with Van den Ham. Van den Ham now on the charge, trying to take on our Greek driver, coming down in towards turn number 11. And, well, it's going to be Van den Ham all in. They just squeeze them through. And Van den Ham does get the move done there. And, well, in the end, I don't think there was anything else the 190 at McLaren could do other than simply try and put up a defensive fight as much as possible. But Katios right now, well, what can he do next? I don't know, to be honest, because Adam Smith now is lined up. So is Jason Hodgson, then James Howarth. They are all queued up here, and the driver who made so many places by staying out of trouble, well, now trouble is finding him, and he goes as defensive as he can. It is going to be the resistance all the way, but here comes Adam Smith around the outside here. They're all going at him, but he's going to defend coming out of turn number 1. Smith now looks to the inside towards turn number 2. He's not close enough here, and, well, he's going to back off a little bit. However, right at the back of this, looks to try and poke his nose in versus Jason Hodgson. He goes high intentionally as Smith gets it a bit wrong. Hodgson now on the inside of him coming out the corner, and, well, Howarth here rolling his way on through. Well, Katios making his way away for now, heading all the way in towards turns 5, 6 and then 7. It's going to be all about now who gets the better run into the middle sector, and Howarth coming on down through that right-hander. But you can see Hodgson looking one way then the other, but not realising that Howarth here on the smoother lines is going to go for the dive into the corner. Big lunge up the inside here, but it's not going to work out completely for now. But it does opens up the door into turn number 9, through the right and now in towards the left. Which way is it going to go at this point? Well, Hodgson is going to be on the inside. It's going to be Howarth on the outside. The battle on the McLaren versus the Aston Martin, and I think Jason Hodgson may just have enough here in the Axis Simsports machine, and, well, in fact, the Phoenix Racing machine, I should say, Phoenix Racing Green machine, as they head down towards turn number 11. And James Howarth right now watches. He can't find a way through, but Smith has broken away, and now he can go chasing after 18th place once again, with Tim Van den Ham very clearly breaking away from all this whilst it's all unfolding behind him. A bit further back, Simon Clifton, well, he got caught up in the early instant at the start of the race, and right now he's on the back of Ross Young as they roar the way on around. And we say hello to Send It Sim Racing there in the YouTube chat. But these drivers roaring the way down in towards the braking zone of turn number 11, and from right into left here they go, and with Simon Clifton close but not quite close enough. From them, we look back to the battle with Smith versus Katios, side by side heading towards turn number 2. And, well, Smith trying to go around the outside into the inside into 3. And, well, right now, the McLaren's not going to have it all go his way. And in the end, oh, goodness me, there's contact between the two of them. And it sends Smith to the barrier there. And, well, Smith on the low line. I think Katios having a bit of oversteer then, the rear coming loose. Made the contact, and Adam Smith, who in the end thought he got it done, and suddenly ends up into the wall. He won't be too pleased about that. I think both drivers have a chat about it after the race and realise what else they could have done. But Smith right now absolutely on a razor edge there, and, well, for Fotis Katios as well, I think both drivers absolutely giving it everything, and somebody was going to end up in the wall at some point. Meanwhile, Jason Hodgson, now he catches up to the back of the man who's just been in the wars, and as they come through the left-hander, Nick Stubb is just up the road as well. Stubb's fallen back because he's had a big off-track that's brought him back to this, but is he going to get gobbled up in it? I don't think so. I think he will try and break away, but as we can see there, James Howarth still close behind. The mid-pack of the Pro Class has absolutely exploded onto our screens here, and that's before you consider Jim Fox, Ross Young and Simon Clifton together as well, as they fight over 24th in Pro. Indeed, we've got some battles towards the bottom end of the top 15 in Pro as well. It's all happening there. Not as much fighting, meanwhile, further up the order, although we do have a change potentially afoot very shortly in the order for third place of Pro, which we're going to take a look at. In fact, it's Vincent Lodder versus Peter Duke. And, well, Lodder did find his way past Duke on the previous lap. This is how their battle has started, at least. And this was coming in towards turn number 8. Lodder went for it, but didn't. In fact, it was a bit of a psychological move, and then decided to cut back into turn 9. And Duke went to turn in, saw the throw was there, and decided, okay, he's got me there. And, well, goodness me, Lodder having a big bit of oversteer there coming up the corner. And, well, coming in towards turn number 10, had to collect it back together again. But then we come back to live racing now. A bit of an expeditionary move there from Vincent Lodder as he tried to recover his way back onto the podium. Well, he's got there now, and Peter Duke, I don't think, has a response since then. But as we come back to your live racing, Dean Sheesby, and that's Klaas Vellen who is just passing, and Vellen making his way around there. That's not the way you take turn number 9, clearly, but I think he's ended up there his own volition under battling, and he's going to drop all the way down the order. He's got no way of getting the car back into the circuit right now. He'll have to reverse and then hope that he's able to do it on the outside of turn number 10 unless he gets a clear run of cars, which he will be due to get shortly as our 23rd place, now 44th place runners coming through. And well, with the car there of Paul Maffey coming up around, well, it's going to be Klaas Vellen who finally gets himself back around. But what exactly went wrong for him? Here we find out. So at the time, he was tucked in behind the 1, 2, 3. Under braking he went, and well, under braking, a small tap on the inside there on the Mercedes of Sheesby. It looked like from that camera angle, there may not have been contact. The camera angle would suggest it, but again, we're not going to say that's for definite, and that is what sent Klaas Vellen all the way round. Was a very tight run into turn number 9, and whether it was just bringing the weight round too quickly or alternatively Sheesby tapping him, well, then the oversteer was too much for Vellen to control. But back we come then to your live racing, and with 7 minutes to go plus the final lap, well, the battle for third place between Lodder and Duke has gone the way of Duke for the time being. Jakub Krafik meanwhile holding on to 6th place, just behind David Hutchison and just ahead of Adam Baker, who's closing on him. The Pro Class definitely right now really roaring to life, and we see more of that here right at the bottom end of the top 26, as this is going to be Simon Clifton trying to go up the inside of Ross Young, the McLaren driver, who in the end is going to have to yield versus the Ford Mustang driver. But it does seem as though Clifton now, whilst he's ahead, and Jim Fox is just looking in his rearview mirrors just in front of the Porsche Island 2 thinking, can you keep fighting, guys? I'd like to break away. Well, it's going to be an absolutely brutal battle between them, and Fox, Clifton and also Young, all three together here as they charge their way in towards the S's. And well, Young right now watching this, I think, with bated breath thinking, how can I get involved? Well, he heads on towards the brakes here. The 102 driver from Scotland, close. Can he try and find a way in? I don't think he can right now. He's going to have to wait as Clifton now all over the back of Fox like a bad rash. Sparks fired there as the under tray hits the tarmac. Young there, well, he looked for it, but in the end he's decided to go around the outside. He thought Clifton would dive to the inside of Fox, but not so. So Simon Clifton, in fact, concertinaing backwards to Young, and Young having to back off entirely there when he had all the speed to try and make a move. A bit of a misinterpretation of which way the cars are going to go, but when it's a free car problem here, much like the free body problem in physics, it's a very complex one and nobody can model it. But right now, Jim Fox being a role model in terms of trying to go defensive into turns 11 and 12 and doing a great job of keeping Clifton at bay. And well, these three, they may not be battling for a big set of points. No, it's got a run for Ross Young, and turn 12 claims another driver coming out the corner. Young falls the way of Nick Stubb and also McNaughton earlier on. Too much exit speed, too much wheel spin on the rear right tyre, and the tyre barrier soaks up another victim. That will put him down. But from him, we then come back to Fotis Katios as he comes up towards turn number 7. And as he does so, he's got Jason Hodgson still chasing him. Hodgson's there, 4 tenths behind. He managed to make a bit of a break, but now Hodgson is back there with him, and Tom Cordy is only a little bit further behind as Katios trying to hold on to 17th place. And right now, definitely, if he can hold on to this is going to be one of the drives of the day from a driver who started all the way in 29th in his class, 34th overall. He survived all the doom and gloom, and well, he may not be on for a biggest haul of points, but to him, these points are going to feel like a win. But as he rolls his way through, and I can definitely see he's becoming a fan favourite, is Fotis Katios in the YouTube chat. Well, he's now got Hodgson firmly within his rearview mirror as we look back from the rear of the lead McLaren here, and it's a pack of 5 McLarens that are all gradually bustling together. And we'll have to see how they all extrapolate from one another with the time that does remain. In the Evo class, we should point out that the top 7 is remaining relatively static at the moment. Although I say that, Martin Brandon is chasing down Rob Gregg, so we will get a view of that shortly in the fight for 7th place. Katios goes defence on the inside here, looking around the outside. Going high is going to be Hodgson. Can he go all the way around? No, he can't. Classic move there being denied with our Greek driver going as defensive he can. But now the Briton up the inside, dives to the inside. Katios now looks at the cutback here. Can he go high? Can he go all the way round? Not repeating what happened between him and Adam Smith, but he wants to get this done. Yes, he can. And now as they make the way down towards turn number 7, he gets back ahead. It's brilliant driving from him. He will not be passed. He is digging in. He has got his shovel and he said, there's the line. I've dug it and now you've got to cross it. And nobody can at the moment as he comes down through turn number 7. And well, Hodgson right now has got to get even more inventive. But what can Jason Hodgson do at this point? Well, the answer is not to be known at the moment. Take your guess, ladies and gentlemen. Where can he go for the move? Because right now, every place he goes for it, the American driver and not the British driver is having an absolute challenge here in terms of trying to find a way to get off row. It is brilliant racing. And whilst all this is happening, well, we need to talk a little bit about Martin Brandon and Rob Gregg because they have swapped places. And how did Brandon get that move done on Rob Gregg? Here is your answer. Now this was at the time for 7th place in the Evo class. Greg was in front there in the Aston Martin through turn number 2. Brandon went low on the inside here, went all in for it. Greg tried to come on down. Both drives have a little bit of door rub. And then it was a drag race all the way out towards turn number 7. And that Mercedes with its straight line speed advantage, you can see the guttural pace of that naturally aspirated 6.3 litre V8 just enabled Brandon to get ahead by the tiniest of margins. But it was enough into turn 7 for 7th place in the Evo class. Brilliant move there from Brandon. And that's what we love to see him making his way up the order, having started in 15th. But from them, coming back to your live racing, well, we've got elbows out here between Hodgson and Katios again. Oh my good lord, as they make the way towards turn number 2 and 3. This isn't the previous lap, this is another lap, but goes very low. Does Hodgson? He's got no momentum coming out the corner. In front of them, well, they've got a driver who's a lap down, and meanwhile, coming up behind is Tom Cordy, and here comes Cordy up the inside of Hodgson. He sees an opportunity, and now the Briton tries to pass the American. Can he do it? The answer is no, and Cordy right now tucks right back in behind as they come out the corner here. Right now, Tom Cordy thinks, well, they're going to fight this much. I want to play a part of this game, but right now it's getting absolutely do or die dicey between them. Further up the order, Rowan Pownier here, battling side by side with Nick Starr. He's trying to make his way into 15th place, but can he go all the way around the outside? I don't think he can, Pownier, and suddenly he's found a bit of pace as Stubb seems to be struggling right at the close of this race. But can he get on the inside then? It's turn number 11, and the answer is going to be he's going to try for it. A Stubb there glowing very red hot that front left brake disc. I wonder where he's overheated the front brakes on that Mercedes, because they shouldn't be glowing that hot this late in the day. If they are, that's a sign he's been absolutely abusing the brake pads. But we'll have to wait and see, as behind, well, Tom Cordy's fallen a little bit further back, and in fact, Cordy has fallen back now to be battling with Adam Smith again after trying to battle with Hodgson for some time. So there's been a bit of a moment between them, but we don't quite have the full scoop on what's happened. But with all this happening, a minute left to go. Our race leader at the moment, well, he's making his way through turn number 12. In fact, turn number 10 is Menno Bloem, so we will get this lap, i.e. lap number 38 plus a 39th tour of the circuit under race conditions. We've still got more to go, and that is not how you do turn 3, Mark de Vries, but he's gone to the grass. I don't know if he's been aided on his adventure, but he's been sent there, and he rejoins. There's something wrong with that car. That is a very heavily damaged Ferrari. We have a quick replay to try and explain. So this was coming out of turn number 1. Behind him was one of his teammates there. I think that was Tim van den Ham who might have made contact with him. So in towards the right-hander. No, there was no contact. Mark de Vries just went straight on at turn number 2. A bit of a lapse concentration, perhaps alternative brake failure. Went straight on into the barrier, and after that, there was no coming back. Mark de Vries has had to tow to the pits. But as he sits there in the pit lane right now, ruining what could have been, well, we do only have 5 seconds left on the clock. Our leader has gone on to one last tour of the circuit. So we have got a 39th and final lap underway, ladies and gentlemen. The white flag waves. And David Hutchinson right now, as we come back to your live racing, in 5th place overall. He's trying to keep Jakub Krafek and Adam Baker behind him just for a little bit longer. And indeed right now the Axis Simsports Red driver has had to dig very deep for this one, having started 9th. Krafek meanwhile has started 15th and made his way to 6th place. And well, Adam Baker started 10th, and you can tell the guy in the middle, the one who we're focusing on in the Porsche 992, is definitely the one who's made all the places in this grouping right now. And I think he's going to be absolutely ecstatic when he gets out that car to take a maiden top 10 here at Circuit Zandvoort. But we will see whether it's all to be. They've still got a little more to go, and with that, well, we can look at them a little bit longer. The SSC machine of Katios here, heading in towards turn number 1. Here comes Hodgson for one last attempt. He tries to go around the outside. Side by side they go. Car rejoining there. Oh, and it's all wrong. It's into the barrier between them as they come through. Hodgson comes across. Katios getting caught up there in it, and well, he carries on. But both drives there with damaged cars. That might be it for the pair of them. We can't stay with them for any longer, ladies and gentlemen, because meanwhile, with all the drama that's happening further down the field, for Menno Bloem out of the Hungaroring, it was take the lead and run away with it. Here today, it was take the lead, retake it after strategy, and run away with it. And Menno Bloem will make it back-to-back victories in pro and overall here at Circuit Zandvoort with a brilliant win by 9.5 seconds over Stephen Codman. Once again, runner-up today, back-to-back second places for Axis Simsports Red in the Ford Mustang, and then it will be Vincent Lodder, who again finishes third on the podium, ahead of Peter Duke, who's fourth. David Hutchinson holds on the end to fifth place, ahead of Jakub Krafik and Adam Baker. Liam Fraser will come home in eighth when all is said and done in the Corvette Z06, and then it will be Christoph Starsmore, who rounds off a ninth place finish there very happily, and then we have a 8-second gap before we get to Jared Love, who in the end will make his way to the line quite comfortable ahead of his peers. Dean Sheesby is going to be best of the rest in 11th place, just ahead of Tim van den Ham and Victor van Ziest as they all finish, and then it will be Nick Stubb in 14th place there, and a very frustrating race for Stubb, given how it all started so well but then went so wrong. Robin Powney finishes 15th, and then we do have a bit of time before what is Chris Jennings. But we must give a shout out here to Dave Collier, who was finishing a lap down, is your Evo winner ahead of Steve Rubino and Denny Ploger. They swapped places towards the end. We're going to have to get a replay of how Collier's made that happen on Steve Rubino, but he has taken the winning class. But we've got a few more finishes to come first, including Katios off camera is finished in 20th ahead of Klaas-Vellen. Then here's Jason Hodgson in a wounded McLaren after their contact. Simon Clift in the end on his move to the Pro class has finished in 23rd place in this race. And then we will see Jim Fox and Ross Young be the last finishers of this race on the lead lap. And there's Fox and there's Young behind him. We kept him honest all the way through. Well, everyone's finished the race, but we need to understand how exactly the lead of the Evo class shifted hands. And here's the explanation, ladies and gentlemen. It was coming out of turn 10 into 11, and it was Dave Collier versus Steve Rubino all the way. And in the end, now I believe that's the rear of the car letting go for Rubino there. They were very far apart at least, or it might have been a bit of netco contact. But either way, into turn 11, Rubino's car snapped loose. Collier's did not, and that is how Dave Collier made the most of it. Although well done to Rubino for getting that car pointed back in the straight line very quickly and not losing too much time. And Denny Ploger in the end taking what was that third place in the Evo class, just a bit further behind. But as we do return to your live circuit side pictures and our drives cool on down, well, let's take a look at those race results subject to any stewards' inquiries, ladies and gentlemen. And goodness me, what a race here today. A race that absolutely delivered at Circuit Zandvoort, as we do say hello to Nelly there in the YouTube chat. So here are the results subject to any stewards' inquiries. And for round number 2 of season 10 of the SimRacing International GT3 Championship, focused here on Split B, powered by Trophy.ai. Menno Bloem, your overall winner for SimRacing Team Lowlands by 9 seconds over Stephen Codman, with the Axis Simsports Red driver making it back-to-back run-up spots behind the back-to-back winner, and Vincent Lodder being a back-to-back third-place finisher there for SimRacing Team Lowlands, team number 1. It was then a further 3 seconds to Peter Duke, who held on to third place for a long time after the pit stop, being in Lodder with fresher tyres, it would seem, on the car, was able to gradually pull his way through. The DC Motorsport driver then being followed up only by 2 tenths by David Hutchinson, who huffed and puffed, but it wasn't enough to dethrone the Mercedes from 4th place. The Axis Simsports Red driver in the Ford Mustang did well to make sure that Jakub Krafik could not pass him, with Krafik taking 6th. Adam Baker took 7th just behind for LS Racing in the Porsche pair, with Moonshiners Racing Club's Liam Fraser in the end having to settle for 8th, having run in 5th place for a good portion of the race until a late mistake. And then we did see Christoph Starsmore in 9th place for Simcast Racing Team UK, 8 seconds clear of Jared Love, who completed your top 10 for DC Motorsport. Best of rest 11th was Dean Sheesby for Moonshiners Racing Club, with your top 15 being rounded out there by Tim van den Ham, who just held off to the line Victor van Ziest, with the SimRacing Team Lowlands 1 driver doing close battle with MJK SimRacing driver all the way through the race. It was then a further 4 seconds back to Nick Stubb for Vulcan Fasters by Glass Tech Racing, the Dutch trio then being followed up by the Swede of Robin Powney for SimCoach. Now looking a bit further down the order to the Evo finishers in the overall running order, and what we can see is that it was a lead lap finish for everybody, including in 25th place there, Fotis Katios, albeit it does seem as though that he's received a post-race time penalty, and I believe, well, he has got a black flag. That will be for instant points picked up, and therefore he has been demoted from what was the 20th place finish on the road, has Katios. So we'll have to try and see what exactly happened there, and that may be reinstated after the racing, depending on what the steward's verdict is. But let's flip to that esports driver, the last lead lap finisher, and there was a lap down there to Dave Collier, who took 26th 6th place overall, but most importantly for the Irishman, his first Evo win of the season there for DC Motorsport after a brilliant run to a podium in round number 1 at the Hungaroring. Steve Rubino once again becomes Mr. Second Place, with the Hobo Racing Ford Mustang being runner-up in Evo this time after Collier's Pass, with MJK SimRacing's Denny Ploger making his way onto the podium there with a brilliant effort. Stuart Rice took 4th place in the class, just a little bit further behind for Phoenix Racing Red, and Callum Morrow in the end takes the top 5 at LS Racing, but great to see the diversity of drivers there in the top 5 in terms of machine and the drivers in the Evo class. Now your top 30. And then Mark DeVries finished 31st behind, and Martin Brandon with a brilliant run to 6th place in the Evo class there. He'll be absolutely ecstatic about that. But we won't dwell too much more on the overall finishing positions, given the classes are where the points are scored. But what we will say is it was a lap down all the way to Matt Stace in 39th, and behind the Flatline Racing driver, it was 2 laps down to Jan Nagy in 40th place after a gutting start to his race. 3 laps down there to James Fraser in 43rd, just behind Robert McNaughton. 4 laps down to Paul Maffey, the last classified finisher for Phoenix Racing Red. And then we did have retirements for Mark Johnson, Max Dean, Mark Van Mulken and Jamie Bardwell. But coming to the individual class finishing positions now, and this is where all the big points are made and lost, starting with the pros, and it was Menno Bloem there for SimRacing Team Lowlands 2, who did incredibly well to take that victory, and indeed back-to-back wins today, following the Hungaroring in our season opener. Axis Simsports Red's Stephen Codman was 2nd place there with the Ford Mustang driver holding off the charge of Vincent Lodder, and the SimRacing Team Lowlands 1 driver had a difficult pit stop. We're not quite sure what happened to see him lose 12 seconds to Bloem, but in the end he lost those 12 seconds and had to recover them, but in the end he couldn't quite make the gap back up. Behind the SimRacing Team Lowlands 1 driver as DC Motorsport's Peter Duke, and David Hutchison completed that pro top 5 for Axis Simsports Red. Jakub Krafik bringing home a good haul of points in this one in 6th place, having started 15th. What a great effort from him. And then behind the Czechia driver, it was Adam Baker for LS Racing on a similar tone of a race, with 9 seconds gap then to Liam Fraser for Moonshiners Racing Club, ahead of Christopher Starsmont and Jared Love, who completed the top 10 for the pros. Then Dean Sheesby was best rest ahead of Tim van den Haan, ahead of Victor van Zeist, with Nick Stubb and Robin Parriner completing the pro top 15. Chris Jennings in the end, in a brutal battle for 16th place, managed to bring it on home for Axis Simsport Blue, ahead of Adam Smith and Tom Cordy. And let's not forget, of course, Fotis Katios and also Jason Hodgson. But between them, of course, James Howarth and Klaas Vellen, who round off the top 20. The Phoenix Racing Green driver being followed up by his teammates Hodgson. And then we did see Simon Clifton take that 22nd place in a bit of a quieter race for him today, with Jim Fox ahead of Ross Young and Fotis Katios in 25th place. It was a lap down there for Mark DeVries and Robin Noel Brown, and then we did see the retirements for Johnson, as in Mark Johnson, Mark Van Mulken and Jamie Bardwell. Then for the Evo class, well, the lesser class in terms of pace perhaps, but by no means less in terms of the excitement of their race. Dave Collier there for DC Motorsport, 2 seconds clear of Hobo Racing's Steve Rubino, and then MJK Sim Racing's Denny Ploger rounding off your top 3 there. And what, top 3 separated by only 6.1 seconds at the close, a very close race, but Collier in the end avoiding all the madness in order to bring it on home. Stuart Rice, an absolutely ecstatic 4th place for him when he gets out the car for Phoenix Racing Red. That's a return to the top 5. We've been waiting to see that. Head of LS Racing's Callum Morrow. And then outside the top 5, it was Martin Brandon, the further 7 seconds behind, but in turn a second ahead, if that of Alex Boniface at Dexterous Motorsports Zemex. Moonshiners Racing Club's Rob Gregg was 8th in Evo, just ahead of 9 Pegasus Panthers' Billy Brinkley, with the two having a good fight towards the end, with Andy Chell in 10th place there, not quite able to repeat what he achieved in qualifying, and indeed the open lap incident cost him dear, and he wasn't able to recover from it for Quatermass Motorsport. Matthew Hunter was 11th, best of the rest for Simcast Racing Team UK, head of Matt Stace, and we saw the Flatline Racing driver then followed up a lap down by Jan Nagy for Iris Racing, a lap down as well for Team MGR's David Pilcher and Robert McNaughton for Dexterous Motorsports Quamar, and then it was 16th place, 2 laps down to James Fraser for Moonshiners Racing Club, 3 laps down to Phoenix Racing Red's Paul Maffey, and a retirement for Max Dean for Split Strat Esports. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our rundown of the provisional results. But it doesn't quite conclude today's broadcast as the circuit falls silent, because coming up in approximately 5 minutes' time, we will be cutting to post-round interviews with our volunteer drivers. So don't go anywhere. You want to miss them. I'm sure plenty of our drivers got plenty of thoughts to say about the racing at Circuit Zandvoort today. And well, what will they have to say? We will shortly find on out.
the green flag, and there we go. Tristan immediately getting the jump on his teammate Luke Lucchese, and he's going to have to go the long way around the outside. It's not done yet because Luke will have that favoured inside line going into turn one, side by side. Has had a good start. He's up 2 places around the outside of Luke Lucchese, 3 wide there. The blue Acura on the inside. Hayden Phoenix Miller has gone from 4th to 1st in the matter of 1 braking zone there, and he will carry these drivers now down in toward turn 4. Great start there for the debutant, who had strong qualifying pace, and now he might be up with an opportunity of making that stick if he can get the clean air in the next, and Plug could have a good run here. Let's ride on board. How does the Obliga defend going into the chicane? Is Plug going to do that tactic where you just stay there right until the last, and Obliga moves over to the entry into the chicane? Good driving. That's a wobble by Tristan, and he's off the road. He's going to lose the position. Is he going to stick up the inside? No. And is Justin Eloff going to fancy his chances? No, he stays.
Watkins Glen, and to have only 9 minutes till we reset and go again gives, I think, the drivers a bit of a moment to pause for thought, because how are you going to manage this, especially if you're 3 wide down the main straight? Humphrey, Leskinen, Katrali, all don't get out Raj Harper 2 by 2 into the opening corner. Outside line taken for Humphrey. He's also a little bit of time on the exit though, as it looks like it's a better run for Cali Leskinen, the leader now in that pro class, as they run their way up the hill through 2 and 3. It looks like Raz Harper's got the best run, and now we could see both elite drivers come through on both pro drivers. So they'll have to get it done on the outside of the bus stop, and that is going to be more than difficult to do. Who's going to get the slipstream? That could be crucial.
And as we now head towards the line, the first round of the season in the America's GT Challenge is underway, and there's a bit of a check-up on the second row of the grid there, as some of the guys have to really slow down and keep it under wraps. But now as they go into the first corner for the first time, hopefully everybody keeping it nice and clean. We'll have to see just how they do. All the GTEs making their way through. Obviously there's a bit of a gap back to the GT3s. They have their own race starting separately, and it's Justin Eloff ahead of Alex.
Getting a bit busy though towards the front of the GT3s. There's a bit of bump drafting. Perry's in here as well. Tim's looking to try and find his way through. Brian Wildmon at the back of this pack as well. Hayden Miller getting the big old push from Perry as they work their way towards the opening corner. I think it's probably quite smart from Tim there just to keep Hayden closer to the front too, because if Hayden loses out, they all lose out. So he's not necessarily going for that move.
Go for it as he looks all the way in towards the exit. 2 by 2 they go behind Christopher Wandler and Moss there. Well, they have swapped places back to how they were, and well, this is going to be Williams. A small tap between the two of them. They just about survive it, and in the end Archie Williams is going to make the move, stick around the outside. That's bold, that's brave, but that's how you get it done. And well, cross the line he goes, and now Christopher Wandler also ahead there as Bowie Moss gets forward, and now they make the way down. You can see he's pulling over there, Darren. He's not happy, he knows he's vulnerable.
He does. He's just defending that inside line. He knows it's difficult to walk around the outside into the S's. Barry Nuevo is going to try it though. He's got a great run, and he's already passed. He's already passed before we get to the corner. Easy as you like. And Wilmon could do absolutely nothing to defend there. The exit wasn't too poor for the Ford Mustang, but there's too much pace in that Corvette in the straight line. And Barry Nuevo just waits bye-bye. Easy for the 77.
And without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, it is time for us to kick off our post-round interviews with our volunteering drivers. And well, we're going to kick off with a man who I think is going to be absolutely ecstatic about how he's performed today. We're 4th place in the Evo class after avoiding all the chaos right at the start of the race, although got pinched up in a little bit of it. It's going to be none other than Stuart Rice, who now joins me in the interview room. Good evening to you, Stuart, and well, what can we say? It's so great to see you back in the top 5 after quite some time away from it. And what a race from yourself tonight in the Evo class. I mean, you started off with quite a knock back and forth, but in the end you survived all the madness and chaos and you've come away with a 4th.
I'd love to know how. I think that's the question I've got. Well, I know how, because I can't remember where I was at one point, but I basically spun myself out trying to get anywhere near Denny Plurger, who is exceptionally quick and exceptionally good. But it basically was just a case I wasn't really intending to let that happen. Like, I dropped down to, I think it was 14th or 15th, and I was just like, I can't, I can't do that again.
Oh, goodness me. Well, very tough race. But before we talk a bit more about the race, let's talk a little bit about your choice of car for this season. Going with the Aston Martin Evo Vantage. I mean, looks a very happy car in your hands out there.
Originally, when I started on it, it wasn't. There is quite a bit of setup that does go into it, which thanks for a lot of sort of prods in the right direction from Grant from Phoenix Racing Team. But it is just a case of getting it to turn right, because originally it would turn off the rear, which is lovely until you understeer into a wall. And it's a case of just making it have that front end. I like a front end car, but not to the point where it pulls around the corner. I prefer to be pushed around the corner, if that makes sense.
Gotcha. Definitely makes sense with regards to being pushed rather than pulled around the corner. And, well, as you make your way into qualifying then today, Circuit Zandvoort, I know there were a lot of concerns with regards to the fact a very tight circuit, 48 cars out there, but you managed to put together quite a respectful lap, to be fair. 35th overall, but importantly, 6th in the class.
Yes, about halfway through I did have an internet disconnect, so I was kind of praying for the rest of the time that I was in the session that it didn't come back again, but it didn't in the end. I did have more time in that, but I think the main thing is just get a decent banker in, and then P7 as a start is pretty decent going, I think, for me at least. So I was happy with that.
Oh, definitely. I'd be happy with that one. And then going into the race, I mean, we just talked a little bit slightly about how the race started. You don't know how you survived what happened at the start line. So let's perhaps jump over that a little bit and then talk about the race evolving. Early on, we can see, as we see on the footage right now, chasing down Denny Floger. But in the early stage, it looked as though for every lap where you pushed, it was almost as if it just wasn't coming to you. What seemed to click midway through? Because, like you say, there was a bit of a moment, and then suddenly everything started to come together.
I think the thing with the Aston, and it was the same with the Lambo, incidentally, last season, is at some point the tyres go from, these are just about manageable to these are banging temperature range, and then they sort of never leave that range. And I don't know whether that's down to me or down to the car, but since it's over 2 cars, I'm hoping that it means I've started getting better with general throttle control, because it never really felt like the tyres went off apart from towards the end, which was, I didn't do a tyre change, because it would have just taken way too long, and it wasn't feeling bad at all. So it's a difficult one to explain, really. It's the tyres just come on at some point and they never really leave, I think, is the best sort of way to explain that.
So some rather subjective and temperamental tyres, but when they were switched on, they definitely worked for you. Now, off the back of that, of course, with everything that's playing out, we saw the pit stop window, a very weird pit stop window here at Circuit Zandvoort. Normally we see some pit stops around the 20 to 25th minute mark, extended all the way to 40 minutes, but it seems though here today, everyone went to get their pit stops in somewhere around the 28th to 35th minute mark. I mean, did you have a particular strategy in mind and stick to it in terms of when you pitted, or did you have to improvise a little bit?
There was a little bit of improvisation, because if I'd pitted before Denny, then I probably would have come out in front of him, which is not fantastic. But if I pitted after him or later than him, which I could have done, then there was just no chance I was going to be able to sort of stick with him, which was kind of the plan. It was sort of stay on the back of Denny Plugger and try and use that as a bit of a tow rope or a guideline. Not necessarily a tow rope, but more a sort of like, there is a target and that's something I could at least aim for. So pit strategy was really just, it was on the fly. Most of my pit strategy is just when it feels right or when anything happens. It was basically after I'd had an incident, I believe. So it was just a case of getting the pits, get it out the way.
Oh, absolutely fair. I mean, a sensible way to do it. And then going into that second stint, that's where we really saw the Evo class suddenly shape up quite a bit. We had drivers drop in, battles ongoing, and very gradually you making up places, and in the end finishing in 4th place. I mean, what must it have been like from your perspective for those final 25 minutes? I bet you can't believe it, the progress that was being made.
No, to be honest, it was just a case of trying to use the faster class, which is why I very much like the faster class being in how they've done the classes this season. I much prefer, because you can actually strategize using the faster classes and letting them through in certain places to, in effect, slow up / hinder the car that's either in front of you or behind you. If you release 5 cars at the car in front of you, then they've got 5 cars to deal with, and it pulls them right back towards you, which is basically the last 20 minutes was me just trying to figure out where to let fast cars through and when to not.
Gotcha, that makes sense. So being smart with the craft there and making sure to work with the traffic rather than against it, and it definitely helped out. And in the end, we saw you bring on home an absolutely brilliant 4th place in class, your best result of the season so far after 2 rounds, and not too far, to be fair, off at the podium finish. I mean, this must be giving you a lot of confidence knowing that 2 rounds in, you're in an Evo class where you're definitely right in the hunt and you're moving forward at a good pace.
Yes, I think finding the right setup has helped with that. It's just a case of then taking that forward, because whilst Hungaroring and Zandvoort are 2 very technical tracks in comparison to a lot of the stuff we have, and I think that's the main concern. Portimao coming up is one that I like, and it's again technical, which means hopefully the Aston works again, as it does, but it's right on the edge. Like, that car is about a hair's width away from going into the barriers at any one point. So it's like the Lambo, but a bit more predictable.
Well, absolutely fair, and appreciate the analysis on how you're feeling with the way the car drives. And speaking of our next round, I know you did make a brief mention of it only moments ago. Well, in fact, one of the later rounds, the Portimao circuit, but coming to the Hungaroring as of next time, how are you feeling for our visit to Germany?
I think that should be an interesting one. I was actually aware that Hockenheim was coming up, actually. That's my bad. Sorry, I've just lost my train of thought.
In fact, I'm wrong there. It's not. We've got the Portimao circuit coming next. I do apologise. I'm the one confusing you.
It's fine, don't worry. But no, Portimao I very much like as a track anyway. It's going to be... It's a lot bigger, at least. So a lot more space for drivers to find spacing quality, or... I mean, even just going too wide is a little bit more comfortable on a track like Portimao. Most corners are an overtaking spot, which is quite nice. And it's just like Zandvoort, very vertical and very fast. So it's still a huge amount of technicality, which I like in tracks. So that's pretty much... I am very much looking forward to Portimao. That should be very good.
Oh, fantastic. Well, we look forward to seeing what you can do there and whether you can chase down a maiden podium of the season at Portimao in a week's time. But with that, Stuart, just before I do let you go, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to live on the broadcast tonight?
So it's pretty much just everyone at Phoenix Racing. They're just exceptionally helpful at just sort of analysing, which has helped a lot with knowing where I can and can't drive, if that makes sense. I know where my limits are, which is something I've never really had until now. So I think that's definitely a part of it. So thanks to them, basically.
Well, I'm sure they'll appreciate the shout out there and your gratitude for working with them and gradually bringing you forward. And you can definitely drive, I can say that, Stuart, in the Phoenix Racing Red Aston Martin. It's been a great performance from yourself today. Well done on the 4th place. And we look forward to plenty more in a week's time in Portugal. But until then, have a great rest of your evening and savour a great result.
Thank you very much.
So here and there, ladies and gentlemen, for a very happy Stuart Rice. You can hear it in his voice, the fact that the result has really clicked together today, and the Phoenix Racing Red Aston Martin Evo Vantage driver pulled it all together. Talking firstly about the choice of car, and saying there about the fact it's a car that he's really had to work with the Phoenix Racing Red team to get the right setup on the car. It hasn't felt comfortable. And talking about the ethic of wanting to be in a car of what is a particular type, where it's pushed or pulled through a corner, 2 very different approaches there, where it's front end led or rear end driven. But in the end, he's found the right setup, and now it's really coming into a nice place. Qualifying went very well, and whilst he did have some technical issues in qualifying, managed to get the lap he wanted together. And then going into the race, well, he doesn't know how he survived the start-finish line instant right at the start. I don't think any of us do. But what we do know is he did survive it and was charging very aggressively. But we saw, after his do-or-die move on Denny Ploger, which he made work, only a couple of corners later, ended up in a spin and had to suddenly change his strategy. And well, that strategy in the end did not quite work out whatsoever in terms of the way he expected, but by going for that strategy, he definitely in the end got his head back in the game and managed to very quickly roar his way on through and make his way into a position whereby he was able to fight for the top 5 and took home 4th place. So a great result there from Stuart Rice, no doubt about it. And as he gets himself set for Portimao in a week's time, the big question we'll be asking is, will that be the first place where he returns to the podium? Well, some would say yes, and I get the feeling, I can't say for certain, I don't have a crystal ball, ladies and gentlemen, but he's definitely going to go all in for it. But with that, we now get ready for our second interview of this evening. We'll be right back in 30 seconds or less for another interview. And well, ladies and gents, we now come to our second interview, and we're going to stay on the theme of Evo drivers. But joining me now in the interview room is none other than Simracing Team UK's Matthew Hunter. Matthew, it's good to hear from you once again. It's been a bit of time, but today I think it's been a bit of a testing time for yourself. 10th place starting class and 11th place finish, not the round you wanted to have necessarily.
I won't lie, Paul. There was a point where I saw a 1 on the standings that didn't have another 1 next to it, and that made me a little concerned. It's been a yo-yo one, but to be fair, I'm beaming from ear to ear after that. Was a heck of a fun race. It's had a bit of everything. Yes, okay. If I'd actually held position, it might have been a bit better. But these things come to these things happen, and it's. Oh, that beam was so much fun.
Oh, he definitely seems to be enjoying the BMW. And, well, coming to that theme, like we asked Stuart only moments ago, why the BMW for this season?
We've been testing it for a while, actually. We kind of had a feeling that the Aston might be on the horizon, sooner than later. By which time we'd already kind of committed to running the Beamer. Then, obviously, the Evo version came out, which I think we could all agree was an interesting move because the Evo actually made initially the car a bit harder to drive. We'd put a lot of testing miles into the non-Evo spec. But whatever, honestly, I don't know what's happened, but we were doing a test pre-Hungaroring, just before, and something just clicked with the car, and it's so much fun to drive. And to be honest, we're dead happy waving the flag for BMW and Motorsport. It's unofficially, of course, at the minute. But it's just a fun car to drive. I call it the no drama llama. The Ferrari, there was a lot going on all the time. You kind of felt on the edge of adhesion all the time. This car, I feel like I can drive fast consistently. And well, I'm breaking out into a sweat because it's 90,000 degrees in my office. But it's just a nice, fun, comfortable car to drive on the M4 as much as it is on the track.
Oh, well, to be fair, a very comfortable car, and that's what you want at the end of the day, a car that's as comfortable as a pair of slippers, I say. And going into this one in terms of Circuit Zandvoort, I mean, a very tricky and very technical circuit, much like the Hungaroring in some respects and not in others. How did you feel qualifying went with that 40th overall and 10th in class? Was that where you expected to be, or did you expect a bit more?
To be honest with you, after the sort of mental kicking I had in the Ferrari last season, I came into this one with no expectations. I knew the front engine rear wheel drive benefited my driving style perhaps a bit more. It's a bit more touring carsy for me, so that was always going to be nice. Again, pre-season we kind of had a ballpark idea of where we were going to be, but until we were actually on the track with the people we're competing with, we weren't going to know. Then Hungaroring happened, and somehow towards the tail end of that first qualifying session, I was getting quicker and quicker and quicker, and finding myself in the top 10. And this time out, I just wanted to do the same again. So, being on the cusp of that again, that's kind of where I want to be. I don't want to be at the very, very back. I want to be, I want to be in that top 10. I want to be fighting, eventually podiums, but we'll be a bit more realistic for the moment. But yeah, top 10 qualifying is perfect for me. Absolutely fine.
Oh, well, that's fantastic. Setting your goals and gradually trying to move forward from them, which is what we always love to hear from an Evo driver's perspective as you try to improve or evolve, using the class name there in the word. Well, if James Bostock, if you're listening, I finally made that joke. If you can pay me a $5 after this broadcast. Joking aside, however, coming into the race itself, however, a very interesting start for the Evo field. Didn't even get across the start-finish line before there was a big incident. Where were you in all of it?
In the smoke, trying to avoid it. I could see something had happened up ahead. I've just been talking to some of the guys, to Andy and Dean, and that to sort of see what happened. There's obviously some new, there's new faces in it. There's people who I think need to kind of read up on the procedures a bit better. It wasn't the best. I'm not going to get too political about it because it's not fair. To be honest, I'm just there for me and my teammates. I'm screaming to David behind me, go left, because this has happened, and just hold our lines and make sure we get through it okay. Thankfully, we did. And yeah, it's unfortunately these things do happen occasionally at the start, but I think if everyone just needs to be very consistent with their speeds and not brake on the green, and this will be avoided in the future. But as far as I'm concerned, some of the faster guys ended up behind me for a bit, so with my twizzling my evil moustache, I'm not too disappointed.
Oh, indeed. I mean, not too disappointed. Although, on the flip side, of course, with avoiding it all right at the start and then starting to get your racing head down, a very different race for yourself. A bit of a lonely race, particularly in that first stint, but on a bit of a different strategy as well. And like you say, at one point, seeing the number one and not any other numbers with it. I mean, that must have felt quite special.
It hasn't happened in competitive racing, I'm not even joking, for easily 10, 15 years. I don't get on podiums very often. I certainly don't lead, organised leagues very often. So it was a big deal. Unfortunately, that's something I've got to start to work on my mind a little bit. If I want to be at that top end, I need to sort of, maintain the composure and stop doing the maths in my head and working out where I need to be. I had Denny, breathing down my neck a little bit there. When he got past me as we were looking at pitting, I saw him pit, and at that point I was actually planning on pitting. I radioed to the guys, say I'm coming in, but then I saw him go in, looked at my laps left. I've got the capacity to do it, and I thought I'm just going to have the lap of my life and do what I can. Obviously came out just ahead of him, but then I'm starting to think about it, and it's just the mind side of it is a big deal. I have to say though, all credit to my fantastic Evo teammate, David. He's new to this scene. We're sort of taking him baby steps through it, and I think he was up as high as 6th, if not a little higher. As I was sort of working my way back through, massive credit to him. He's come on leaps and bounds in literally 2 rounds. So it is as much as I'm the person sat here, being pleased to talk to you. It is about everybody else in the team that are doing amazing work as well.
Oh, indeed, and a good point there. David Pilcher at one point, like you say, making his way quite comfortably up into the top 10, if not the top 6 of the Evo class. And it's great to see the pair of you both making progress as this season makes its way into its infant steps. I mean, obviously, we'd love to see you guys more and more up there and fighting for those top 5s, but I'm sure that'll come with time. But I also have to ask, towards the end of the race, we did see, of course, the intermingling of a load of pros and Evos together. How did you find that from your perspective? Because I can imagine it's a bit of a balance that you want to chase down an Evo in front of you, but then you've got a pro coming up behind you, and it's sort of, do I let them go and let them pull me up to the car in front, or do I say, no, I've got a race I want to do?
Yeah, it's a bit of fun, isn't it? It got a little bit. World Endurance Championship Fuji at points. I've put a screen grab in the Discord of a moment where we're 3 abreast coming after the carousel, going down towards the back of the circuit, which was quite fun. I was using, where I could, I was using traffic to my advantage. If the pros are coming past me and I'm in a group with my Evo friends and it's moving them wide, I'm undercutting them. They're doing the same to me. It's all about the dance. But to be honest, I'm just trying to. I know what it's like. I've been watching and involved in endurance racing for a very, very long time. I know what it's like to be the faster cars trying to come through. I know what it's like to be the slower cars, having them, coming down on behind you. I just try to hold my line, give them the room, be as predictable as possible, not making any sudden moves. And if they have to wait for a slightly safer place, then that's what's going to have to happen, because we can't make, for the sake, in air quotes, safety of everyone, we can't be making hero moves that ruins people's races just for the sake of saving a hundredth of a second here and there. But that being said, it's a load of fun. I think the split now is quite interesting, because it is obviously it's almost like having GT3 and GT4 in a way, in terms of the performance difference between the two classes. So it will be interesting to see whether the organisers maintain this into season 11. I will just say, of course, running car number 10, I think it's only fair I win one this season, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, very true. We'd love to see you take a victory in class. And, well, speaking of that then, and sort of forecasting your mind forward, because we've got 8 rounds to go, and I've finally got my head screwed on to remember it is Portimao next week. Firstly, how are you feeling for Portimao?
Do you know, I keep saying, it's a track I really like. I'd never driven at Zandvoort on any sim ever before this week, or well, a couple of days before, and I've had a hell of a good time. I have driven Portimao in a few different things, and it's got a really fun flow to it. It's like a proper roller coaster circuit. I think it's probably more fun on a bike, I imagine, than it is on a in a GT car. But that being said, I think the nature of the circuit, nice and wide, lots of fast flowing corners, we can move the weight around on the car and just have a real good time. I think it's going to be a bit of fun. It'll be nice. It'll be nice. It's Kota I'm not looking forward to, but we'll cross that bridge when we get to it.
Well, we've got to get to that bridge of Kota, and we will eventually get to it at some point. But looking ahead as well to the remainder of the season, if there was one round where you think you could win in the 8 remaining, which one is it going to be?
Oh, go on, Bennett. Now you've put me at... Goodness me. Eesh. I want to say Mugello, because Mugello's a circuit I've got a lot of history with, but I'm probably going to say Road America, if I'm honest. So Road America and I, we have a storied history in iRacing, and I've always traditionally in a lot of things done very, very well there. I think this series, this last season here at that circuit was a bit of a blip. So I've got a bit of a thing to deal with there, and we're gonna go for everything we possibly can at Road America, and yeah, what a podium, why not?
Oh, goodness me, I'm loving the confidence, and we'll hold you to it at Road America and look forward to seeing what you can do at Portimao. But Matthew, just before I do let you go, is there anyone you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to live on the broadcast?
Just a massive thank you to all the team behind us, to Steve, to Ellie, Ben on the Team US side, everyone on the Team US side, Chris, Jordan, David, everyone who's racing this fantastic BMW this season. And Adam, of course, who's helping us fantastically with the setup work. Couldn't do it without all of them. We are, we're not even a year into this project as a team. It's absolutely amazing. The family feel we've got is just utterly awesome. And well, we'll get there. We're gonna get there. We're gonna have more wins. I can feel it.
Oh, I love it. I love the confidence and that family vibe, like you say. And, well, I'm sure those wins are going to come the team's way, to yourself included, as time goes on. But, Matthew, with that, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you join me in the interview room. Congratulations today on a solid performance. I'll see you right in the thick of it, from lights out to checker flag. We look forward to more at Portimao in a week's time. But until then, my friend, have a great rest of your evening.
Cheers, Paul.
So here and there, ladies and gentlemen, from Simcast Racing Team UK's Matthew Hunter in the Evo class. And what a wonderful conversation that was. And the fact we've got to hear a little bit about his choice of car and talking about the peculiarities of the Evo package BMW M4 and how it really has evolved away from the original car and how they've had to put a lot of work in to make this car very comfortable to drive, much like the original M4, and call it the No Drama Llama, which I absolutely love that saying right now. I'm not going to copyright it because he's come up with it first, clearly, but what a way to summarise the car. And speaking of no drama, well, tonight's race, very different, full of drama for many an Evo driver, including Matthew Hunter. Survived the start somehow, and after that had to try and keep it all together over the racing distance, as we have seen him give chase to Andy Chell over a good portion of the first stint in the pictures in the background, and also Paul Maffey. Talking out there as well, his performance, and at one point ended up right at the front of the field, albeit for a brief moment because of strategy, but also talking a little bit about his teammate, David Pilcher, and well, Pilcher quite raw and new to the car, and indeed to the team, but enjoying the racing as well, and it's great to see them celebrating the successes hand in hand and well, looking ahead to the remainder of the season. He set himself the target, which is the Evo win at Road America. That's a statement to make, and at Portimao he's looking forward to the roller coaster ride of the circuit and what he can do there. Well, I say keep your eyes out for Matthew Hunter in a week's time, ladies and gentlemen. Could he be making his way back into that top 10? Could he even perhaps take a top 5? We will wait and see. But with that, we've got one more interview coming up, and well, we're going to be making our way into the pro class. But who is it going to be with? Let's find out. And without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, our final interviewee of this evening, as he joins me now in the interview room, is none other than Moonshiners Racing Club's Liam Fraser. Liam, it's great to have you with me once again, but I have to ask, are you feeling happy about this result, or are you feeling as though it's a missed opportunity?
To be fair, I'm quite happy with that. I like to go forward. Wherever I start, I like to finish in front of that. I started 8th, finished 8th, so I've, to be honest, with the pace of the guys in here, I've got to be happy with that.
Oh, very true. I mean, it's not just the pace as well. You are the odd one out here where we've got a lot of Ferraris, Fords and Mercedes. You're Mr. Corvette. You're looking very quick in this Corvette. What do you feel is the secret to it? Because you're making it work so well.
I don't know. For some reason, I end up picking the least popular car every single season. It does turn well. I think it gets out the corners well. It can be a bit edgy going in, and sometimes it's the opposite to most cars. Slow in, fast out. Some of them are fast in and slow out. So I'm not sure what it is. I'm not sure what I've clicked with it, but it seems to do me all right. It is a bit edgy, and I'm a bit scared of it sometimes, but it seems to be getting the pace out of it anyway.
Oh, 100%, I'd agree with that. You're getting the pace out of it. And speaking of the pace, qualifying 8th place, a very tight qualifying field. Sounds as though you're very happy with the lap you delivered.
Yeah, spent most of qualifying actually lapping. I wanted to have a rest, really, but I just didn't feel like I was getting what I needed out of it. Finally got a bit of a Hail Mary lap together in the clear air. The tyres were on. The fuel was as low as it was going to go, and the tyres were as good as they could have been. I managed to actually put a full lap together.
Well, you definitely delivered a strong lap. Now, going into the race, the one thing we can definitely say is in the early stage of the race, you looked as though you were a man possessed to try and make your way to the top 5, and you very quickly found your way into there until a bit of an incident set you back. What happened?
I was running really well, actually. The stars aligned at the start, to be honest. We had a car off to the left, so that was one, and then two come together in what we call the carousel, and there was two more freebies, and I was just running on the back of Peter Duke for a long time. I was catching him, I was dropping away, I was catching him and dropping away. I wanted Peter Duke, to be honest, today after coming together in a racing incident, Hungaroring. I fancied I wanted to crack at him, to be honest, but I just couldn't get anywhere near him. It turns I might have had pace to stick with him, but I definitely didn't have the concentration. I ran out of concentration. I used it all in qualifying. I wish I'd have had a big break in qualifying, to be honest. I just ran out of concentration. Had a slow speed spin. I had massive pressure from behind from the. And to be fair, I didn't even have time to look who it was. All I knew it was a Mustang. Massive pressure, definitely quicker than me in different places on the track. It just kept getting bigger and smaller in the mirror. And just had a slow spin on the left-hander towards the end of the lap. A really slow spin on my own. So managed to get back, and then I was just driving awfully. Managed to, on my own, hit the outside of the carousel. He told me I had damage, but I didn't feel it, so I just pushed on. And I just never really got the concentration back after that. It was very busy in our chat at the start of the race, in the middle of the race, towards the end. Everyone's having their own race. Luckily for me, I got some really good traffic. Traffic was really good to me today. Not really upset with anybody, traffic-wise. But yeah, I just ran out of concentration, I think.
Oh, indeed. Well, it's unfortunate you did run out of concentration, but still, what an effort from yourself over the distance to really put together a great qualifying lap and then carve your way through. And we see these pictures of you chasing down Peter Duke, and like you say, you got close, then fell back a little bit and just didn't quite have enough to beat him. But as we went on in the race, we saw you, despite your troubles, run a very consistent race all the way to 8th place. And like you said earlier, you always like to move forward, but finish where you started. Do you feel as though now 2 rounds in, you've got any particular rivals? Or is it just purely you're looking at a rivalry between yourself and Peter Duke?
Well, I want to say Peter Duke, but I don't think I'm with him just yet. Don't tell him that. But obviously, first race, so the race, the pre-season, we were looking at the James Ayworth car, and I don't think we're looking. Anytime I'm in the top 10, I'm quite happy, to be honest. It does seem to be the same guys up there. So, yeah, I think Nick Stubbs moved up as well. So, got an eye on Nick Stubb there. James Ayworth, I don't think he had a good race of it today. But and Starsmore, he's definitely somebody I'm asking what lap time, before the race begins. I'm wondering what Starsmore's doing. Christopher Starsmore, what times he's putting in. And I always like to know, because he's a decent yardstick for definite. So there's a good few of them, really.
Oh, fair play. It's great to have so many different close rivals over the course of the racing, and we look forward to see you taking those rivalries into the rounds ahead. Speaking of which, next week, Portimao's Grand Prix circuit. How are you feeling for a trip to Portugal?
Yeah, I like that track a lot. I think I clicked with that one a little bit. I've had my worst race in the world there, but this time it's not wet, so I'm all right. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I love the track, love driving it, and it does present quite a lot of overtaking opportunities as well. So,
oh, brilliant! Well,
see what the car can do.
Oh, very true. We do look forward to seeing you try to deliver a great result there. But as we get ready to let you go, Liam, is there anyone you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to live on the broadcast tonight?
Yeah, thank you to you for putting on a good show. Thank you for the league organisers. It's really good. All the Moonshiner boys, Tony from work, and everybody that loves me.
Well, we can definitely add ourselves to that, Liam, because we absolutely love you to bits. And great racing.
Two of them a dog.
Oh, goodness me. Well, great racing from yourself tonight. Thank you for joining me for an interview. It's always great to hear from you. And we look forward to seeing what you can do at Portimao in a week's time. But until then, my friend, have a great rest of your evening.
Thank you. All the best.
So here and there, ladies and gentlemen, we're very happy. He's always great to talk to, isn't he? Liam Fraser from Moonshiners Racing Club. And talking about, firstly, the choice of car and the fact he does definitely have this habit, doesn't he? Whatever car's the least popular on the grid, he will normally be in it. And he's gone to the Corvette Z06, and he really is making it click so far after 2 rounds of racing. And talking about as well the fact that he just really feels as though he can naturally get the grip in the corners, and it's something that works well. We've seen in previous seasons when he's run the likes of the Porsche 992, it is a theme that he likes cars that grip up on the rear end and are able to give him at that corner exit speed. And will Circuit Zandvoort and the Hungaroring allowing him to extract the most out of the Corvette so far. Qualifying, he was happy with that 8th place. However, he did point out there the fact he didn't really give himself a respite in qualifying. He delivered the laps and then kept putting in pace laps. He wasn't quite settled in the car. The only problem is he needed a break going into the race, and it meant the concentration levels weren't there after he picked up so many fortunate places and was chasing down Peter Duke, as we see here in those replay pictures after their pit stop. So in the end, it was a challenge, and unfortunately a challenge that became a bit too much. There was a bit of a spin, a bit of an incident into the wall at turn number 3, but the Moonshiners Racing Club driver didn't give up, and in the end fought hard to make his way all the way back to where he started in 8th place in the Pro and overall, and well, that's where he finished. Achieving his goal, at least finishing where he started, not moving forward. And at Portimao, we can expect plenty more from him. Could Liam Fraser be looking to chase down another top 5? We will see in a week's time. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our interviews for today. A big thank you to all of our drivers who we've heard from. And as we can see there, a big thank you firstly to Stuart Rice for Phoenix Racing Red, who delivered an absolutely brilliant performance today, and we absolutely love to see him chase down that 4th place finish. Just fell slightly short of the podium in the Evo class, but the Phoenix Racing Red driver was jubilant with that and seems to be starting to really click with the team and with the car. We then heard from Matthew Hunter, and well, for Matthew Hunter, he may not have had the Starlight performance of being on the podium or the top 5 of the Evo class, but he's enjoying himself and getting to grips with the BMW M4 Evo, and the team dynamic at Simracing Team UK really has to be praised. Then we heard from Liam Fraser just now, the Moonshiners Racing Club driver in the Pro class, and well, absolutely loving the car, loving the feel of the circuits, just not quite enjoying the concentration levels today. And whilst he could have perhaps had a top 5, he had to settle for 8th where he started, but expect plenty more from him in a week's time. A big thank you to all 3 of our competitors for not just their performances on the circuit, but joining me for an interview. And well, we look forward to seeing plenty more from them in a week's time at Portimao. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, it's now time for us to wrap up. Thank you very much for watching, and if you have enjoyed today's show, and perhaps you're sat there right now wanting to know what series we've got and how you can be on the grid at SimRacing International, well, on screen are all 5 of our leagues. You've been tuning in today, of course, to Season 10 of the Trophy.ai sponsored GT3 Championship, and that runs on every Thursday evening. On Sundays every week, we do have the UK SimRacing Community GT3 Championship as well, and that's in its 16th season there. If you want to be on the grid in GT3s, we can only do weekends. If you're a GT3 or a GTE fan, then every second Sunday, we do have the America's GT Challenge, the ultimate multi-class challenge of the 2 classes that are very similar on pace, with the GTs being replaced by the GT3s in recent years, and it does add a very different dynamic to the racing there. We also have an upcoming new season racing on Mondays, which is yet to be revealed, but it will be revealed soon. If you're not looking to be on the grid in a more competitive environment, but instead preferring a bit more of a casual environment, well, we do have our free-to-join practice league here at SimRacing International that runs on Tuesday evenings and Saturday mornings. So, pretty much every day of the week, there's some racing for you to get behind the wheel of, and if you want to be part of the SimRacing International community and get on the grid with us, all you got to do is join the official Discord, link at the bottom of the screen there, and you'll be taken to the beating heart of the SRI community. We'd also like to take a moment to say a big thank you to our league and series sponsors, without whom we could not do this, who do include, of course, our title sponsor for this series, Trophy.ai, also CarMate, More Than Technology, SimCoach, where you unlock your true potential as the ultimate sim racing driver, the GP2 Group, and last but not least, Motorsport UK's esports division, for recognising us here at SimRacing International as a recommended community. We're very grateful for that recognition, and we will hope to make that continue for the long term. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, attention now turns to a week's time. And in a week's time, it's not the Hockenheimring, it is the Portimao Grand Prix circuit, or known in full as the Autodromo do International Algarve. But as the drivers get ready to roar around Portugal for 60 minutes of racing, well, the stories and the scenes are gradually being set. It would seem in the Pro class, Menno Bloem with back-to-back victories ahead of Steve Codman, and also Vincent Lodder. He is the man to beat, and it is a podium that seems to be locked in. But can anybody break their way into that top 3, or will they keep it to themselves and perhaps switch it up? And meanwhile, in the Evo class, it's all wide open. But at the end of it all, it seems as though Dave Collier seems to be building momentum, and Steve Rubino needs to find a way to bounce back, with Denny Ploger playing a role in amongst the mix. Well, for all of how the story continues in a week's time, you have to tune in for round number 3 on Thursday, the 9th of October 2025. But until then, we have been the SimRacing International GT3 Championship. I've been your host and commentator for Split B, Paul Walsh, also known as TX11, or Britain Split, depending on what media you follow me on. And until next time, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smart, smiling, and most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, like our drivers, remember to stay on track. Good night.
For the upcoming right-hander, brake 30 meters later and ease off the pressure.